Thank you. All right, let's begin. Good morning and welcome to the Wayne State School of Information Sciences Second Beyond Barrier Conversations on Equity and Information Conference. My name is Amber Harrison. I use they, she pronouns. I'm an academic services officer as well as the DEI aid coordinator for the school. And like last year, I will be your host today. And again, last year we focused on diverse youth literature. And now, due to its growing usage and influence and our school's curiosity, this year's topic is artificial intelligence and social justice, ensuring equity in technology. We will explore the critical intersection of artificial intelligence, libraries, and social justice. As technology continues to evolve, it is essential that libraries remain spaces of equity, inclusion, and community. Today, we will dive into how AI can be leveraged in libraries to enhance access to information while also addressing the ethical implications of AI systems that could perpetuate bias, limit access, or marginalize vulnerable communities. Today's presentations will focus on strategies for promoting equity in technology, from algorithmic transparency to equitable access to resources, ensuring that libraries remain inclusive and responsive to the needs of all patrons. And so with that, let's dive into what we're going to do today. So today's event will feature an opening keynote speaker, student presentations, an AI demo session, an expert panel that will delve into the realm of AI, libraries, and social justice, and a closing keynote speaker. But do not worry, in the midst of that, we will take a 10-minute break at about 12:05 to 12:15. And now some reminders. Reminder number one, please keep your mics off while our speakers are presenting. We want to make sure that we're being respectful of their work and their time. As far as Q&A, if you have questions, the members of the DEI Programming Committee will be monitoring the chat for questions and troubleshooting. So at the end of each session, if you have questions, please share them in the chat. There might be opportunity to unmute yourself if the speaker allows for more conversation. And finally, please be kind and respectful to one another. This is an educational and learning space for everyone to learn, explore, grow, learn from one another. This is not a place for arguing. It's not a place for fighting. This is a space for everyone to feel safe and to explore the world of AI. And with that, let's get started. All right, let's begin with our opening keynote speaker, Dr. Jing Liu, Clinical Assistant Professor at the Science and Engineering Libraries of Purdue University. Dr. Liu's research interests include application of AI in libraries as well as classrooms, information literacy, and Lean Six Sigma. She provides resources on the following subjects: engineering, technology, and computer science, as well as others. Dr. Liu has published a wide range of LibGuides, including artificial intelligence, children's literature, and education. Let's all give a big welcome to Dr. Liu.
Thank you, Amber, for introducing me. I'm gonna start and go ahead and share my screen. Can you see my screen, Amber? Great. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Jing Liu, Clinical Assistant Professor from Purdue University Libraries and the School of Information Study. And since 2023, I've been engaged in exploring how AI tools can support and enhance our work as librarians. And I'm truly delighted I have this opportunity to share my thoughts and experiences with you today. Okay. Before I begin, I would like to take a moment to ground us with a few guiding questions. I hope you can carry those questions throughout this presentation and maybe even beyond today. The first question is, what does AI mean for libraries today and tomorrow? The second question is, what new roles are emerging for librarians as we navigate this AI transformation? And the last question here is, how can we use AI tools to support equity and inclusion? Those are kind of questions, I found myself returning to again and again. And I'd like to share some of my reflections with you. As we think about the role of librarians in the age of AI, it'd be helpful to consider how much our profession has already evolved in the past decades. So just a little bit of history here is, back in the 1900s and through the 1980s, we were in the card catalog year. At that time, everything was physical. So if we say like finding information, basically means we need to flip the index cards in the drawers. That's a time consuming and was totally human driven. Then moving to 1980s to 1990s, we transitioned to the era of online public access catalogs. And then we can search information on a screen. It was available on a computer. It's more efficient, but at that time, the information still was structured, organized by the same rules and categorized the way we used before. And then now, then in 2000 and 2010s, we entered the federated search and discovery layers. Means we had products like AppSco Discovery, something we can search information throughout multiple databases at once. So that means we can do research much faster, convenient, but also means we may be at that time also facing a lot of overwhelming amount of information. And then 2020s and now, so we're in the era of AI-driven discovery. So we have AI tools nowadays, not just retrieve information for us. They can predict, they can personalize information, and even generate new information never exists before. So artificial intelligence really helps us to organize knowledge in ways that we couldn't even imagine just like 5 years ago. So this challenging now is also making like tools that we need to make sure those tools are used in the fair, accessible, and meaningful way for everyone. And this AI technological shifts feel different. This is not just because of the nature of the tools themselves, they're different. Also because of speed of adoption, the lack of regulation, and the inequities it can create. AI is being adopted much faster than any prior knowledge in libraries. So anyone nowadays, you have a computer, you have internet, you can just open ChatGPT website and start using it. You can just have a nice conversation, or you can ask it to draft an email. It can be anything. AI tools or AI supportive functions also have been integrated in tools in education, healthcare, research, name it, all kinds of fields, right? However, unlike previous technologies, AI has emerged without clear standards for ethics, transparency, and accountability. So previous, when we have those new technology introduced to us, usually they came out together with introductions, guidelines, like things we can really follow. Then the absence of those kind of standards in many ways really create risks and concerns for us as a user. AI also widens the gaps in access and literacy. So even though AI tools, we talk that people can easily access, but not really accessible to everyone equally. There are people who don't have internet, people don't have personal computers. Those with limited resources or lack of training, they're being left behind. And this definitely creates a digital divide where someone have the power to leverage AI's benefits. I feel like myself, like I constantly using AI, testing AI. So like I'm ahead in the game that I get the benefits of using AI to share part of my workload to AI, then not necessarily mean that I do less work, but also means I can take more research, I can take more teaching, I do more. While others, they don't have the resources, they're excluded from this game. Then if this happens systematically, like certain communities, group of people, they're systematically excluded, from using or understanding these tools, then their voices, needs, or perspectives will be left out from this system and shaping our future. So when we talk about access, it's not just access itself, it's also about justice. AI has fundamentally changed how we practice information literacy. I would say mostly because AI itself, it generates new information. It can generate entirely new text, write fictions, right? Generate images by a couple of prompts, even can create a new personalized birthday song for you. I have demonstrated people how to use AI to create an instructional video within just 5 minutes, use a couple of prompts. AI was able to create the script and search suitable media like images, videos for me to create the instructional video. Well, this is quite powerful, but librarians, we have always focused on credibility, authorship, and the context. And those are the pillars in a way we use to evaluate information. And AI is challenging all of them, all three. So it can make us to think about some critical questions like what counts as source when AI can generate its original text, right? Original information. Who is the author when content is created by a machine trained on enormous sources? Do we give AI authorship? How can we verify what's true when facts are generated? Or some quite often is the information it's not true. So those are kind of some foundational questions for our profession. If us, like librarians, we're going to remain trusted sources of knowledge, information, especially in this AI-driven landscape, then we are the ones need to ask those questions. Even though I'm presenting those questions, I don't really have I would say like best answers or perfect answers for them, but those are some questions we continue to ask and till we have answers. Okay. Let's move on to talk about the patrons. So of course, it's not just librarians. We're adapting to this AI technology. Our patrons too, right? Students, faculty, they use the AI their own way. And then they would come to us with new expectations, needs, and challenges. So some of the, some kind of expectations they would like us to help them could be use AI tools to search relevant information or articles. I got like consultation requests regarding that part quite a lot. They want us to help them or guide them to evaluate AI-generated content. I have to say I got these questions a lot, but I always tell my patrons, you gotta go to the primary sources. So if you just do some casual searching on AI and you don't really care much, that's okay. But if you really want to utilize the AI-generated responses and a part of your research or teaching, then you really need to verify the information, go back to the primary sources. They want us help them navigate the ethical use of AI. They want to understand what's appropriate, what crosses lines, especially when it comes to academia integrity. And this is most quite questions from faculty, like what kind of guidelines they can develop for their own course, what's the best way to guide students use AI ethically. Excuse me. They want to know how to protect their data and privacy. They want to stay in control of their information. So when I explore AI tools, large language models, I always to see if there are setting buttons for us to say if we can opt in or opt out to retain our data, how long the tools would retain data. Those are some functions we can discuss. And also I always recommend a Copilot over other large language models just because Microsoft has its own like contract with universities, so they don't like use our data for training their algorithms. They want us build the AI literacy skills for them. Like I constantly get invitations from faculty to teach how to navigate the AIs for research to their students. So they're not just looking for simple answers. They want to know how to navigate the tools themselves. They want clear guidelines for using AI, especially when it comes to, like I mentioned, as academia integrity policies or ethical frameworks. This can be a course level, just for individual course, can be department level or even university level. So those kind of new expectations really present us with opportunities as well as new sets of responsibilities. Let's now take a closer look of how AI tools have been already changing the way we work in libraries. So I'm gonna talk about how some tools we have utilized at Purdue or our faculty have utilized, to support our work. I'm gonna start with large language models. So I put Copilot, ChatGPT, and Perplexity here. So those are the tools that I recommend our Purdue community use most. They help us search and discover information. They can understand a natural language, and just the way I talk right now, it feels like conversation, right? And when they respond in a context-based way, synthesize information, summarize information, even generate it, like a brainstorming for you. And for example, when I teach students about AI, I often show them how to use tools like Perplexity to structure search strategies to find relevant articles in databases. So structure database searching strategies. And instead of struggling find the right keywords, once the students, they know what kind of research topic they have, and then they describe their topic in natural language in large language models, then they can follow the response to develop search strategies. Oftentimes, those strategies not perfect, but those are great starting point for students kind of understand, how search strategy should look like, and test in databases, then follow up with how to refine those search strategies based on the results. Another function I want to mention here is recently, ChatGPT has released a new function called deep research. I have tested it a couple of times. It really can provide great information like explanation, generate research processes by steps, or even they can compare perspectives on certain topic. I have to say, I was talking to it as I'm a grad student conducting a research, and I found it super helpful to break down conducting researches in steps. And I wish I had this when I was in my doing my PhD. Anyway, so those large language models, they are not just searching engines. They're not just a Google, right? You just search information. They're more like collaborative tools, personal assistants even. Okay, let's continue with search and discovery. So besides large language models, we also use AI integrated those two functions into search tools. So I always teach students about Cite AI and Research Rabbit. Those are great tools. Cite AI itself goes beyond traditional citation counts, not only show how many citation counts for a certain article. It actually analyzes the context in which an article is cited. So it shows you whether it supports, whether it contradicts, or simply just mention claim. And Cite AI itself indexes more than 1.2 billion citation statements, so it's very resourceful. The best function I always share or demo people is AI assistant feature. It's a chatbot that provides narrative answers like a literature review. So you can ask it even just write a simple literature review, summarize some information, identify the current research trending. Each response shows what papers it has been consulted or cited, and you can control the number of the papers you want it to be consulted with. It makes finding relevant articles much faster. In terms of Research Rabbit, many of my students love it because it visualizes relationships between papers, authors, and research topics. Once you have a couple of seed articles, you will definitely use for your research. You can use it to find similar articles, previous work, papers published under the same authors, or similar or exactly same authors. So this makes our traditional citation mapping or chaining way easier. It used to be you have to create an Excel spreadsheet and do everything manually, and now you have Research Rabbit. And also beyond those like new tools, our traditional databases like Engineering Village and Scopus are either developing or already have developed AI-supported search functions. I know Scopus has already released their AI searching function, and I know Engineering Village is doing their pilot. So now they're using AI not just to deliver information as their traditional way. They want to make sure that we can make the best sense of it. Okay. So next, besides searching information, we see AI application that can help people organize and synthesize information. The tools I would introduce to you, the first here is Notebook LLM. It is a free tool designed by Google. You know, if you're interested, feel free to search those tools I introduced here and just, you know, take a look, explore. This tool acts like a personal knowledge assistant, and it will allow us to compile notes, generate summaries, and draw connections among different sources. I think you can upload up to 50 sources to this tool. And it allows us to upload various formats of sources like PDFs, website links, audios, and even YouTube videos. And then it will help us to make sense of what we've gathered. And you can simply use a chatbot there. So it's like there's a chatbot function. You can ask questions. You can find, when the general responses, it will show which section of certain sources it pull out this response. And it also can create a podcast audio for you to listen and summarize the information from sources and create an audio. Adobe also released their own AI interactive function. So nowadays, if you use that function, when you open PDF, you don't have to use all time to read the lengthy articles. You can simply ask a couple of questions and have it gather the summaries or find some explanations for you. Another tool I really want to introduce to you is Napkin AI, which actually is like my student introduced it to me. This tool can providing idea organization and visual mapping. So it literally can turn any text into visuals. Doesn't matter, it's just a couple of sentences or lengthy paragraphs. And when you just select the text, it automatically generates visuals, and then you can choose different styles, different color palettes, or you can customize the colors or fonts yourself. I found those visuals are great for slides and the posters. Okay. Also, our libraries also start utilizing AI to share and transfer knowledge in new formats. So take myself as an example, my colleague and I, we have been constantly asked to provide guest lectures and consultation meetings about, how to search in databases, how to do systematic review. I believe maybe some of us here in the conference experience the same thing, right? And those repetitive lectures really takes a lot of time on us. Not saying that we don't want to do that, we don't want to teach our students, but we think for our time, it'd be much worth for us to provide more individualized instruction. So then we decided, now we have the AI technology, we kind of tested a couple of times. So we decided to use ChatGPT and AI supported video creating tool called VEED, VEED, to create instructional videos to cover those topics we usually would convene during guest lectures. And it's super helpful, especially for some classes, like online classes, the instructors can put this LibGuide to their syllabus. And then we found that it's helpful that we can convey those complex concepts, through short, engaging videos. We intentionally, manage to break the concepts in videos less than 3 minutes. Okay. So our libraries also encourage faculty to use AI tools to enhance their teaching practices. My favorite tool here are Magic School and Age-8 AI. Magic School here itself, I like it because it has over 80 pre-designed AI tools that support for your teaching. So it doesn't matter whether you just want to do a lesson plan, you want to design some quiz questions for your students, or you want to create interactive learning activities for your class. Then you can select one of those tools there. And the best function I like Magic School is it's a Magic Student feature. So when you click that button as a teachers, instructors, you choose a Magic Student function. That means you are assigned certain AI tools directly to your students. Then you are actually creating a virtual AI classroom. And then the students can interact with the tools for free. So they can use those tools to learn certain vocabularies, to do assessments, to do writing practice. And I love it because you are literally, as instructors, you are creating a safe, controlled, transparent AI literacy environment for students. You can see all the interactions your students have with the AI tools you assign to them. Age-8 AI, it offers similar functions like Magic School. You can use it more likely to create curriculum assessments and individualize learning content. The unique thing about it is it be able to follow a lot of well-known educational frameworks. So you can apply the frameworks to your own teaching. So that's why I like it. Okay. So now we talk about the exciting possibilities and applications of using AI. Of course, it comes with challenges we cannot ignore. The first is biases and representation. AI systems definitely reflect the biases of the data they're trained on. And maybe they are also baked into the AI tools they developed based on. And second is lack of transparency. Many AI systems, they work like a black boxes. I'm not sure you've heard of that. Like even when the engineers who design the algorithms, they won't be able to truly understand how it works. All they do is more like change the input and see how it reflect or change the output. They don't really know what's in the algorithm or how AI think in the black box. And privacy and the data ethics. AI tools often rely on collecting and analyzing vast amounts of user data. So this is a tip I share with my students is if you like a heavy user of AI, special large language models, ChatGPT, I would highly recommend you to register for an email account. You wouldn't share with anyone. You won't use it anywhere else and just use it for AI. Okay. Continue with the challenges. Equity and access gaps. So AI tools, of course, they are increasingly available. There are so many tools available on the market and getting more and more. Access is not evenly distributed. Many libraries, they still lack the funding or infrastructure to adopt those tools. Scale and capacity gaps. Many librarians, they feel unprepared to evaluate or teach AI tools. And the last challenge I want to highlight here is a lack of ethical standards. Those AI systems, they're created by private companies, right? We are not sure what kind of ethical standards they follow. Do they even have ethical standards? We're not sure. And the standards for bias detection, ethical use, and accessibility, they're either emerging, hopefully, or like unevenly applied, so we don't know. And those the lack of the standards really leave us with unresolved questions like what kind of ethical standards we should follow. Everybody is just more like exploring and trying. How can we ensure our tools align with our values, especially equity, privacy, and inclusivity? Now I would like to discuss some of the new roles as being librarian. So some of our librarians, like me, we're actually become information hub for AI, because we're really in a unique position to offer resources and support to help people understand how to use, evaluate, and even question those AI tools. So I do offer like workshops, meetings for students. And the best thing I want to show here is a LibGuide I created. So I put a link here. Feel free, to browse my LibGuide. In the last 15 months, it has more than 130,000 views. So really, this is a very effective way that to share AI knowledge. And besides, us being librarians sharing the information, I would want to highlight that our libraries really can provide a safe, critical space for public dialogue for AI. I had so many students came to me and be like, they feel like they want to test and see how AI can help them support their learning, but they are so afraid to open the dialogues, open the discussion with their instructors, because they don't know their instructors' attitudes, opinions toward using AI, and they're not wrong, because really some instructors would really view students using AI purely for plagiarism, like for cheating. So this is kind of unique position for us. We can come in and structure the conversations. Okay. So next, librarians can be AI literacy educators. So as we learn more and more about AI, definitely we can be the part of the AI literacy team. And in my view, like I view AI literacy just an extension of information literacy. We can teach our patrons to ask better prompt questions, structure better, precise, and ethical prompts in AI. There are frameworks available. So the framework I put here is from Microsoft for Copilot, OpenAI, Google. They all have their own frameworks we can reference. We can help them evaluate AI generated content, like ask questions like, is it accurate, biased, useful, ethical? Those kind of questions embedding in their minds when they use AI. Okay. And being an educator, AI educator is not just one piece of the puzzle. We also need to advocate for ethical, inclusive, and accessible use of AI. So we want people to use it transparently, and we want probably demand a clear explanation of how AI tools work, especially if you have vendors approach to you, and I would like to say whether your university want to test certain new AI tools. These are some questions you want to ask, right? What kind of data these tools are built on, and how decisions are made. We want to make sure the AI tools adoption aligns with our core library values. Well, so how we started the journey. So especially when AI feels so complex and overwhelming for people, and it can be. So my suggestion is start with something, simple. Start with curiosity. Find an AI tool you like, you've heard, and then just start play, test, and reflect. If you found some AI tools you tested, you don't like it, and you feel frustrated, I would say, pass it, try another one. So it's quite often time it's not you, could be the design of the tool itself. So I've been there, so I know how it feels like. And then let's say you tried a couple of tools, you feel comfortable use it, and then it's a time to actually build AI literacy skills, which means you may want to dive in to say how large language model work, their functions, how to write prompts by utilizing strategies, because they are actually very helpful. And if you structure in the right way, you get better answers. Actually, a small tip here is I want to share is when I ask questions, I always use please. Just I naturally ask someone a favor. Please, can you help me? So theoretically, I should get a better answer. We want to identify the ethical risks when we use AI tools, and this is something we can share with our patrons. We want to explore AI-supported tools that are being integrated in our work and research, teaching, accessibility, and others. Okay. Let's say you have developed more AI literacy skills, and then it's time you merge your librarianship, your library background. You look at those tools through a library's lens. You may ask a question like, does this tool align with our values? As I mentioned, the privacy, equity, and transparency. So keep in mind to say how these tools collect, store, use our data, right? Do we understand how it works? And can we explain the outputs to our patrons clearly and confidently? And then we need to have the courage to say no. We're willing to say no when the tools don't meet our standards and we don't recommend to our patrons. And then the last one here is wanna make an impact. So after you become a kind of expert, you're ahead of the game. So remember, you always need to make an impact. You want to make sure you at least contribute to the path that everyone can have equal access to AI tools. And it doesn't matter, you just open workshop, you can create a LibGuide, and just all formats, just being part of the team that make an impact to let AI tools to be accessible to more people, more population. Okay, so next I'm gonna introduce some resources that you might start with this AI journey. So the resources I recommend here first are the online training resources developed by Google. Those are free online training, training sessions, introduction to generative AI. This is a great start point if you are new to AI and you just want to explore the basic concepts, how to use it. The second here is generative AI for educators. I personally have went through the whole content. It took me only 2 hours. So I do recommend people, you want to use, you want to test how you can use AI and especially constructing prompts for educational purposes. The second resource I recommend here are LibGuides and resources from universities. I put my LibGuide here. I also put LibGuides from other universities, Georgetown University, Virginia Tech University. You probably found the LibGuides from university in British as well. It's just, when I view those LibGuides, they are wonderful resources curated by experts, curated by people invested a month or even a year of time, keep updating. So it's a very effective way to build up your AI literacy skills. And of course, you might find other information like this one I put here is Stanford's teaching guide here. So at the university level, what kind of guidelines they follow, maybe you want to adopt at your own institution. And the last strategy here, my favorite, is simply ask AI. So I put 2 prompts here. The first prompt is, can you please demo, or you see, I use please. Can you please demo or provide an example of what you can do? And this is a prompt I often use when I encounter, try to test a new function or new AI app. So AI is different, not like any traditional tool. You probably need to go to YouTube, go to Google and search, oh, how can you use it? But, just simple ask a question, let it show you the examples and you get the functions immediately by reading through the example. And you can also ask AI, what are the best AI tools for specific task? I found it helpful is, for example, in AI in teaching practice, there are just so many tools, every month you maybe see new tools released, right? And maybe at the end of the year, you want to say, you want to ask Perplexity, be like, what are the best tools for teaching in 2025? So, and you don't need to spend so much time to explore and make the comparison. Okay. Well, I have heard people questioning the effectiveness of librarianship in this AI age, because AI can do all the search for us. And in my perspective, I think librarianship actually matters more than ever before. As librarians, our work has never just be delivering some content, right? Or we do also, we care about the context itself. And of course, AI can generate information just like 10 seconds, but they don't understand what they produce. They don't have the culture. They're not human beings, so they don't have a cultural background, a historic background. They don't have ethical background. They don't have those. And then we can help our patrons to ask when they use AI, where did this information come from? Whose perspective are missing, right? What assumptions are built into these tools I'm using? What assumptions that are there in this response? So we can bring human touch, the human part that the AI cannot replicate. Second here is efficiency is definitely valuable, but that's not the only goal here. AI can give us quick answer, but we need to teach our patrons how to ask better questions, how to challenge those assumptions, and evaluate what they want. And empowerment here also means equity. So we want to make sure everyone has AI access to AI tools, those digital literacy resources, the guidance that can help them participate fully in this AI-driven world. So this kind of the ability to question, to analyze, and to adapt is a skill that lasts. It doesn't matter what the tool we use. And then finally, our role as librarians can, have always been rooted in ethics and justice. And that's a foundation that matters even more nowadays. So AI tools, they're created by humans, trained on the data that reflect the existing biases. If we're not helpful, then the technology, they're not helpful. They actually reinforce those injustices, already existing. So we do have the responsibility that we need to advocate for the ethical standards and accountability in the AI tools. And then we need to understand we need to challenge those systems that produce biased or harmful outcomes. We want to make sure AI tools are accessible to people at a disadvantage. Okay. AI is definitely transforming how we search, how we learn, and how we share information. And tools have changed, and they will keep changing. Like every couple of months, they'll change. But our values haven't. We, as librarians, we stay rooted in principles that have always guided our work. We want to make sure that everyone has the tools, has the resources, knowledge they need to thrive. We want to create spaces, and can be visual, can be physical. We want to create spaces where discovery and curiosity are encouraged. We want to build an inclusive, empowering environment where people can engage with these new technologies ethically, critically, and even creatively. So at the end of this presentation, I like to say that our librarians not just responding to this AI change, we're also part of of leading this AI transformation. So that be the end of my presentation, and thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, feel free to type in the chat. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing here.
Thank you, Dr. Liu. As she said, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat.
Oh, I see a question. Have you had any experience with Otter AI and Jing? I actually, I personally, I haven't used both of the tools. But I know that I noticed like when I was in a virtual meeting like this, I noticed some people would call in Zoom or Teams meeting and have the Otter AI and participate in as well. So they'll be able to have the, showing, seeing the transcript when they being part of the meeting. If there are no more questions, I will hand back to Amber. I can type my personal email here in the chat. So if you have any other questions later, okay, feel free to email me. Do library faculty at Purdue work with faculty advising them about AI advances? Yes, actually, so we have we do have like workshops that we structure to offer Purdue faculty to teach them how to use AI. And me working as a library liaison, so specifically as a liaison for School of Education. Then every time I do my guest lecture, I always bring a component, the perspectives of using AI. And because it's kind of like because of the AI deep guide is being known like to people, so I received a lot of requests that faculty, especially those instructors for PhD seminars, teaching how to conduct research. They want to know how to navigate and use AI for being part of their research progress. Okay, I will turn it back to you, Amber.
All right, thank you so much for a great opening keynote. I am especially going to be looking into some of those training sessions you mentioned, because that's great, especially if they're free. And so with that, it is time we transition to presentations from School of Information Sciences graduate students. And so first up is MLIS student. I hope I don't mess your name up. I'm really sorry if I do. Viji Velayutham, who will discuss augmented reality classes.
Thank you, Amber. Can I share screen? Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
All good?
All good.
Thank you, Mike. Hello, thanks to Dr. Jing for that eye-opening presentation on AI and libraries. Piggybacking on that, I'm going to be talking about AR today. My name is Viji, and I'm pursuing my MLIS at Wayne State University. This presentation is on augmented reality glasses. I had originally worked on this for Professor Donahue's IT class, where she'd asked us to research about a technology that will be good for use in a library setting. It conforms so much with the Beyond Barriers conference theme today that I worked on it to present to this esteemed audience of innovative thinkers at the intersection of information science, technology, and social justice. Ensuring equity in technology signifies the critical effort to create artificial intelligence systems that are fair, accessible, and inclusive for everyone. It is about recognizing biases that might exist within AI models, ensuring diverse representation in data and decision-making, making technology a tool for empowerment. It is about actively using AI to bridge the societal gaps, improve access to opportunities, and uplift underrepresented communities. For me, it is a reminder that technology should serve humanity equally and ethically, and that everyone involved in its development carries a responsibility to achieve that. As you can see here, AR glasses have come to almost look like regular glasses, just with a lot more functionality. In my presentation, I'll talk about what is augmented reality, the rationale behind why these could be a great addition in a library setting, the advantages and disadvantages of having such a niche technology, and also some arguments to personally pitch at my library why they should be adding this to the library of things. I have also included an environmental and sustainability analysis on AR glasses. Now let's look at some definitions of augmented reality. AR is a fascinating technology that superimposes computer-generated images, sounds, and other sensations onto the real world. It's all about enhancing our real world with digital information, making day-to-day experiences more engaging and interactive. It enhances your perception of reality by blending virtual elements with your physical environment, typically through devices like smartphones, tablets, or these glasses. Unlike virtual reality, VR, which creates an immersive virtual-only environment, augmented reality adds to your existing physical surroundings. It's like having a digital layer on top of the real world. Now coming to AR glasses, also known as smart glasses, they are wearable devices that use augmented reality to overlay digital information onto the physical surroundings. They typically come with built-in displays such as cameras and sensors that allow you to see and interact with virtual elements while still being aware of the real world around you. Think of it as having a heads-up display right in front of your eyes. I've put some few examples of AR glasses that are widely available in the market now, and a couple of them, Microsoft HoloLens 2 is also known for its advanced mixed reality capabilities, and it's widely used in industries like healthcare, manufacturing, and education. Apple Vision Pro is an AR headset that uses advanced eye and hand tracking to navigate and can double up as a 4K external monitor as well. Let's look at why we could deploy AR glasses at a library setting. So some of the reasons that I've listed why it should be a fantastic addition would be we could have interactive exhibits. Libraries can create immersive AR exhibits related to literature, science, art, and also we could enhance learning experiences by bringing books and educational materials to life, making learning more engaging and interactive for readers of all ages. Virtual tours could be provided. Think of patrons using AR glasses to take virtual tours of historical sites, museums, or even other libraries from your own library premises without having to leave. AR Storybook might allow readers to point their device at a page and see the characters come to life like an animation movie. I know I can pitch this point at my local library to promote summer reading for kids or adults of all ages, in fact. By integrating AR glasses with the library's digital systems, users can access the catalog directly through their glasses. This would allow patrons to search for books, check availability, and even receive guided navigation to find the physical location of a book within the library. Can you imagine those possibilities? Such an integration can make the library experience more seamless and efficient to utilize the library resources. Imagine walking through the aisles of the library to find a book that you're looking for, and the glasses would straight lead you like a map to where it is. And also on the side, it would tell you if the particular book has won any awards, Pulitzer Prizes, or if it's on the New York Times bestsellers list, or even belongs to a local mom's book club group or something. As with any technology, AR glasses, while offering many benefits, also have some downsides. Let's just look quickly at those as well. Of course, as you all know, the high cost, it could be very expensive, leading to a big budget strain on the library's budget. Accessibility issues. Not everyone may feel comfortable using AR technology. Some patrons might find it challenging or even intimidating. Like just how Dr. Liu was mentioning about AI and the challenges, it's similar to that. Ensuring that all the visitors have equal access and support is crucial, and this makes it once again training to be available. That again puts another budget constraint. AR glasses require regular maintenance, updates, and technical support. The libraries would need to invest in training staff to manage and assist with the devices. And of course, there's going to be privacy issues because there's we're using cameras and sensors to capture everything, and other patrons might complain about their privacy because if the camera inadvertently catches an image or something. Content quality, the quality and relevance of content needs to be carefully curated because it has to enhance the experience of the library patron and does not mislead or distract them. On a physical level, there definitely is going to be some eye strain because of prolonged use of AR glasses. There's going to be some fatigue to the eye because you're going to be looking at close-up digital content, which could cause dryness and discomfort to the eyes. And this huge digital transformation could cause cognitive overload, and AR glasses can present a lot of information at once. So the patrons need to be made aware of that so as not to overwhelm them. I did a little study on the environmental impacts, and once again, this is talking about the many benefits of AR glasses again, but especially in a suburban library environment, like I discussed, it can be made very community-centric by virtual collaborations, enabling members to collaborate on projects using AR technology like virtual art installations, augmented reality book clubs. For a community with a diverse patron body, language translation services could be made available using the AR glasses because they can provide real-time translation services, especially for non-English speakers. It can provide translated text or provide audio translations while they are browsing. The experiences could be made very inclusive for people with disabilities by providing visual aids and interactive content that cater to the individuals, making it once again more inclusive and accommodating for everybody. Several programs and workshops could be offered that teach patrons how to create their own AR content, like virtual tours, interactive exhibits, and augmented reality clubs or stories. With resource access, I already spoke about the AR glasses to navigate the library catalog and locate books and stuff. You can also make digital archives. You can have the patrons they can hands-on look at like feel like they're touching and feeling an artifact, but without actually being able to handle it because it can preserve the artifact in such a way so that you're not really touching it, and so it can be made available for all patrons to use. With such an overload of information, the libraries are also, we need to remember, quiet spaces. And with augmented reading, we can enhance that experience by providing additional information, such as author biographies, related topics, and other multimedia content directly through AR glasses without disturbing anyone else. We can have meditative and relaxation spaces by creating virtual relaxing environments where patrons can use the AR glasses to experience calming visuals and guided meditative sessions, promoting mental well-being, which seems to be very important these days. Everyone's talking about sustainability these days, so I looked into a little sustainability study as well. And some of the positives, as anybody can tell, are reduced paper usage because we don't need to print as much materials, and the libraries can provide digital access to books, articles, and other resources. By using AR glasses, patrons can view and interact with the digital content without needing physical copies like brochures or handouts. On the energy efficiency side, Apple Vision Pro promotes this by having designed their glasses, AR glasses with energy efficiency in mind. It looks like their batteries used 61% lesser energy. Libraries can also use AR glasses to promote sustainability by creating programs that teach patrons about environmental issues and sustainable practices. This can help raise awareness and encourage more eco-friendly behaviors in the community. On the negative side, like many electronic devices, AR glasses have, of course, a very limited lifespan and can contribute to the electronic waste. The libraries would need to have a plan for recycling and properly disposing of these devices to minimize their environmental footprint. The production of AR glasses, of course, involves the extraction of raw materials and manufacturing processes that could be harmful to the environment. So choosing manufacturers that follow sustainable practices and use eco-friendly materials can help reduce that impact. In conclusion, once again, the many benefits of AR glasses we've already discussed, like interactive exhibits, interactive workshops, where libraries can host workshops where the community members can create their own AR content, storytelling projects. I'm sorry. Sorry. Sorry about the pause. Community history projects can be held, collaborative learning experiences, such as virtual science experiments. In this picture, actually, if you can see, the student, a medical student, is holding practically almost like she pretends to be holding a heart, a human heart, while studying possibly anatomy of the human body or something. And such immersive experiences can only be had with such a technology made possible. Local events and festivals can be hosted by providing attendees with interactive maps, historical information, and engaging activities that can be accessed through the glasses. As libraries continue to evolve in the digital age, embracing AR glasses is a forward-thinking step that promises to keep them at the heart of community education and engagement. AR can democratize access to information and resources, enabling people from diverse backgrounds to engage with a benefit from advanced technology. Providing AR glasses through the library could make this cutting-edge technology accessible to people who might not otherwise have the chance to use it. Libraries are already champions of equity and access, so introducing augmented reality fits perfectly with that mission. Here are some of the references I used for this presentation. Some websites, blogs, and also Wikipedia, of course. If you're interested in exploring, please, you can take a look at those. And the images are from Gemini Google, right from. Thank you.
Thank you, Viji, for your presentation. I personally didn't know that much about AR glasses, so this was highly informative to me. I didn't realize that you could interact with, am I correct that you can interact with what you're seeing?
You can pretend to interact, right? Because
yeah.
Yeah,
That's so cool. Thank you.
You're welcome, Trevor.
So next up, we have MSIS student Jennifer McKnight, who will review the user experience of the World Wide Web. Jennifer, take it away.
Hi, everyone. As she said, my name is Jennifer McKnight. I'm completing my master's in information science here at Wayne State, focusing on user experience. And professionally, I work as a UX content strategist. So I'm going to go ahead and share my slides here. You guys see them?
Yes, we do.
Awesome. Thank you. And one more thing. Okay. So this presentation reflects on my recent literature review into the relationship between relevance, information retrieval systems, and user experience with a lens on equity and information access. As someone who spent years working in SEO and content design, I noticed a disconnect between how search engines are optimized and how people, especially those from underrepresented communities, actually look for information. My literature review was born out of the gap between creating information and obtaining information. I wanted to explore how the idea of relevance could be understood as a user experience and how we might rethink search systems to serve more people more effectively. Okay, so let's start with the big question, and how do we ensure equity in online information retrieval? The web is the largest knowledge system humanity has ever created. But access to that knowledge depends heavily on one thing, how people search. Search engines are the primary interface between people and information. But that interface, it isn't neutral. It's shaped by algorithms, data models, and assumptions that often reflect the dominant perspective. So we need to ask, who gets a seamless, relevant experience and who gets stuck. Oops. Yep, that's right. Okay. All right, so we need to consider this first. Search isn't just about matching keywords, it's about interpreting human intent. Search systems today are built on assumptions about user behavior, but those assumptions don't always reflect the full diversity of users. What people find relevant is influenced by task, context, background knowledge, and language. So designing search systems that work for everyone requires us to design not just for queries, but for people. That's why I focus on relevance as an experience, not just a result. Let's take a step back for a minute. Online search has evolved significantly over the past 30 years. We started with keyword-based systems that required users to speak in Boolean logic. Then came semantic search, where systems tried to guess what users meant. Now, with GPTs, we have generative search that mimics how humans synthesize information. But as systems became more complex, so did the barriers for users. For example, if you don't know the right terminology, or if you're unsure how to phrase a question, the system may not understand you. And that's where people get excluded. Even when results are returned, evaluating them is another challenge. There's a difference between searching for information and retrieving information. Research by Chucklin and Direct shows that algorithmic rankings don't always match user judgments of relevance. That means just because a result is ranked first doesn't mean it's helpful. And often, relevant results are buried, especially for users outside the system's norm. This is why I say relevance is not just a computational task, it's a human one. Nicholas Belkin introduced the idea of the anomalous state of knowledge, or ask. This happens when users know they need something, but they can't quite define what that is. Their internal understanding is forming, evolving, and often ambiguous. Traditional search engines don't support that process well. They rely on a well-formed query and expect the user to know what to ask. But as Marcia J. Bates explains in her berry picking model, users don't search in a straight line. They gather bits and pieces, footnotes, links, references, adjusting their direction as they learn more. This nonlinear process is how people naturally search, especially when dealing with complex, unfamiliar, or interdisciplinary topics. But traditional systems weren't built for that. That's where GPTs offer an important shift. With tools like ChatGPT, users can engage in a more conversational, iterative process. They can ask a broad question, get a partial answer, then refine their thinking through follow-up questions. It mimics how people construct knowledge, not just how we retrieve it. Using an interface that considers ask, we don't need one perfect query. We take multiple paths to meaning. And modern information retrieval systems that reflect this behavior, like GPTs, can dramatically reduce the gap between what's sought and what's found. So let's zoom in on that idea. Sarah Savick defined relevance as a relation between the user, their context, and the information presented. It's subjective, it changes, and is deeply tied to user experience. This reframing, relevance as a UX outcome, was one of the key insights of my review. It helped me understand why traditional search engine optimization methods often fall short because they focus on visibility, not usability of the information or the actual meaning. Relevance isn't a static metric, it's a moment of resonance between a user and the information they find. If we view search as a human-computer interaction, it shifts, the stakes shift. We're not just designing database, we're designing experiences. And those experiences impact everything from education and health access to employment and civic participation. Marchionini calls this interaction a noumenal cloud, a complex, context-rich moment where people engage with information systems. That cloud is shaped by personal knowledge, emotional state, culture, and even the device that the information is accessed on. When we think of the web as a user experience system, it becomes more clear. We need to optimize not just for like speed and accuracy of delivering the information, but for understanding, inclusivity, and trust. Relevance behavior becomes the emotional and functional heart of search. It's what makes the system work or fail for someone in a critical moment. And just like in user experience design, if we're not testing across diverse users and contexts, we're not designing a system that works for everyone. So if we're not designing for everyone, who gets left behind? Well, perhaps first-generation college students who don't know academic jargon, or non-native English speakers who struggle with phrasing, or neurodivergent users who use non-traditional search patterns, or maybe people with lower digital literacy. If search systems are built for majority models and tested on predictable behavior, they'll consistently fail those users who are outside of the norm. We must design with context, not just content. And we also have to consider convenience, since studies by Conaway and Savalanian reveal that convenience drives most search behaviors. People choose what's easy and fast, not necessarily what's best. And when systems are complex and unintuitive, users either settle for subpar answers or give up entirely. This matters because relevance can't exist if the system isn't usable or accessible. Digital information access has become opportunity access. So if the UX of search fails a user, they lose more than time, they lose trust, credibility, and connection with the information. So where does AI fit into all of this? GPTs like ChatGPT offer a new frontier. They provide semantic flexibility, allowing users to speak more naturally and still retrieve complex information. They even synthesize results, bridging the gap between search and understanding. But they also reflect the same biases as the data sets they're trained on. So the same UX questions apply. Who was the system designed for? Who was tested? And whose voice is missing? AI doesn't solve the problem of equity. It just simply evolves it. So how do we move forward? Well, my literature review suggests these key steps. Treat relevance as a user-centered design goal, not just a search engine metric. Build information retrieval systems that accommodate anomalous states and flexible querying. Design with the needs of marginalized users in mind from day one, and encourage collaboration between content creators, UX designers, and AI researchers. Basically, we need an ethics of access, not just efficiency, which is what it currently is. In conclusion, relevance is not just about finding the right answer, it's about having the right experience. The web is our collective library, school, town square, and help desk. And if people can't find what they need, or if they're not even sure how to ask, then we're not serving them well. This literature review reminded me that UX is equity work, and search isn't just technical, it's human, emotional, and social. My goal is to help build a web that reflects that. Hey, thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, for your presentation. I really appreciated you highlighting relevance within the user experience, as well as talking about user experience as it relates to GPT and AI. I think that's an important conversation. It looks like you're getting some comments in the chat. If anyone has questions for Jennifer, you can put them in the chat or say them now. Oh, you're just getting compliments.
Oh,
Well,
I'll do questions.
I'll give you a couple seconds.
Okay.
All right. If no one has questions, just good comments, Thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us and for your very important and relatable topic.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we will now hear from Jillian Beckwell, who I should say presented at last year's conference. She last year reported on the research on the importance of LGBTQ representation in children and young adult literature through examining the Heartstopper graphic novel series, which is also, I believe, a Netflix series. This year, Jillian will be discussing the information-seeking behavior of chronic disease patients on social media.
Thank you so much. Let me just share my screen. All right, can you see my screen okay?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Okay, let me just everything ready. Okay. So hi everyone, my name is Jillian Beckwell and I am an SIS student in my last semester here at Wayne. I'm so excited to be able to present again and share my work as well as to learn from all of the other speakers today. The previous presentations were amazing. I'm already learning so much and I can't wait to listen to the rest of them. So I will be sharing what I learned through a literature review I conducted in one of my classes about the information-seeking behavior of chronic disease patients on social media. I thoroughly enjoyed the process of researching and writing about this topic as it combines health and information behavior, which are two areas of librarianship that I'm interested in. Um, so by better understanding how chronic disease patients search for health resources, health and information professionals can come up with ways to provide more equitable access to these resources where users are actually searching. Great. Chronic disease patients have a high information need. As they deal with long-lasting conditions that affect their health and daily living activities, it is important that these patients have an abundance of support from the healthcare system to successfully manage their diagnosis. Consumer health information supplies patients with information on their health to learn more about their conditions and make informed decisions. For the digital era, this information would solely come from the healthcare providers treating their patients. Many patients now prefer to seek information through other sources online, particularly social media. Some even spend time searching for health information on a weekly basis. Through this presentation, I hope to compile and connect current scholarship about information-seeking behavior of chronic disease patients on social media through Jessing's radical change theory. What a mouthful. These findings can provide health information experts the opportunity to better disseminate information where patients can easily find it. There are several reasons why chronic disease patients may turn to social media like Facebook, Instagram, and Reddit to find health information. One reason is the accessibility of social media and the low health skills, health literacy skills of some patients. Patients want their information in short and precise passages without having to read through complex terminology and confusing lengthy articles. Social media provides a convenient and easily accessible means to search for health information for those with a device and internet, considering that there are no required fees or subscriptions to make an account on these platforms. Additionally, most of the posts are written by peers in an understandable language, making it easy for those with low health literacy skills to find information that is accessible. Anonymity is also a factor in the use of social media. Social media allows patients to ask questions and seek information from strangers, meaning there is a lower risk involved in the information searching process. Some platforms like Reddit are completely anonymous, meaning patients can ask questions or share information regarding their own health without risk of being identified or personally judged. A lack of diverse health information can also lead patients to social media. Patients of underserved groups often lack representative and relatable health information, leading to both a lack of accessible information and a decline in patient care. social media provides access to health information from peers of similar background or experience. Lastly, a lack of support from the healthcare system can also push patients towards social media. A decline in hospital libraries and limitations in the time a practitioner can provide care and appointments may lead to a feeling of disregard in patients. On the other hand, a patient may post a question on social media and receive answers and support in seconds. So there's obviously an easier place to go to. To analyze patterns in the information I found, I utilized Dressing's radical change theory. The radical change theory explains the synergistic combination of changing resources and youth in the current digital age. Although primarily applied to youth information behavior, this theory can also explain changes in information resources and information behavior online for any individual. The radical change theory centers around 3 digital age principles: interactivity, connectivity, and access. These principles can be used to analyze the information behavior of chronic disease patients on social media. In Dressing's radical change theory, interactivity refers to dynamic, user-controlled, nonlinear, non-sequential, complex information behavior and representation. Each chronic disease patient has their own unique behavior and experience searching for information on social media, due to factors such as level of support and engagement style, self-efficacy, and emotions. The internet has allowed patients to turn into more active participants in matters of their own health by empowering patients to easily search and disperse information with other patients. The highly interactive features of social media applications allows patients to make their own choice about what they want or need to explore, and ultimately create their own path or sequence to seek health information. Patients can locate health information by engaging with others on social media, known as engaging, or by only observing the activity of others, which is known as lurking. Some patients in online health groups or communities on social media prefer to frequently post questions, detail their experiences, and express their frustration or confusion. Other patients who prefer to lurk on social media passively seek information by reading the conversations of other patients without really interacting. Various research, like from Juan and Farnood, found that those without a supportive community may reach out to peers online for emotional or social support, while those who feel satisfied with the support they receive from loved ones may just choose to lurk instead. A patient's sense of self-efficacy can affect how they approach their information-seeking process for health information on social media. For a patient with a promotion focus, a self-efficacy message in health information is more motivating. On the other hand, a patient with a goal to prevent worsening symptoms would find a response efficacy message with an effective way to treat symptoms more motivating. Emotions are heavily ingrained in social media and the information search process. A user can express and oftentimes amplify their emotions in their posts, comments, and direct messages, evoking emotion in the users viewing their content as well. Requests for information on social media often involve patients posting about personal problems or complaints of failures, stresses, and worries in such a way that seems to invite help. By expressing the negative feelings they are experiencing, patients implicitly draw in social and informational support from peers on social media. Kuhlthau's information search process notes that feelings of doubt, frustration, and confusion are often present at the beginning of the information-seeking process and tend to shift to positive emotions as the process goes on. Chronic disease patients often face fear, anxiety, or depression throughout their diagnostic and treatment journey. Patients may turn to social media to receive emotional support or immediate responses during times of crises or high anxiety. The information searching behavior of chronic disease patients can be described by its interactivity, especially regarding a patient's engagement style, self-motivation, and emotional state. Social media is based on connection, connecting users to other users, organizations, and businesses, and the content, ideas, opinions, and perceptions that they post. Patients turn to social media to find health information because of its ability to easily connect users with the people or information they seek. Peer-to-peer information seeking on social media allows for the exchange of information on health topics such as disease management, lifestyle changes, medication options, and more. Patients can easily connect with others through online communities and patient influencers who often create their own online communities. One way that patients use social media to seek information is through online health communities, or OHCs. Online health groups can be found on different social media platforms, such as Facebook's groups feature or on a subreddit page on Reddit. These communities focus on a particular health condition or disease and often have threads or labels for specific topics related to their focus that can be accessed at any point in time. Zhang found that over half of the posts within a particular diabetes Facebook group asked for medical information, including symptoms, complications, tests, treatments, and more. By connecting through an OHC, patients are easily able to ask questions, share their experiences and advice, and support each other in one organized space at any point in time. Some patients who have experienced the challenge of finding information related to their diagnosis end up creating their own community through their account on social media. Patient influencers, otherwise known as opinion leaders, online community cheerleaders, or disease veterans, are a source of information on social media that some patients seek out. The desire to create a community can stem from a past struggle to find relevant health information, support, and an accurate reflection of themselves in the media or the medical field. Patient influencers tend to act as health information educators or professionals, as they tend to break down complex health information based on their experience and provide support for a community of patients. The health information provided by patient influencers is broken down in a way that is easy to understand or culturally relevant, making it easy for patients to find information. Many patients use social media to seek health information through connections with peers dealing with similar connections. Patients can easily engage with peers through OHCs or communities built by patient influencers, finding informational and social support. Social media allows for the dissemination of previously inaccessible information and resources for chronic disease patients, especially those dealing with rare chronic diseases. In fact, social media may be the only way for patients with rare chronic diseases to find relevant health information, considering the small number of individuals diagnosed with rare diseases. Social media has become a tool essentially to the rare genetic disease community, as it provides the opportunity for these patients to find each other despite geographical barriers. Patients are quite active in OHCs related to genetic or rare diseases for multiple reasons, such as seeking social, emotional, and informational support from others experiencing similar conditions worldwide. Additionally, patients can share personal experiences and useful resources to help others find a diagnosis to present to their healthcare provider. When considering the uses of social media to seek health information, it is necessary to explore the possible negative consequences or drawbacks to these common behaviors. Although social media may make health information more accessible in terms of cost and readability, it can also make misinformation equally as accessible. Additionally, patients can use the information they find to diagnose or treat their conditions without consulting a healthcare provider, leading to risky and potentially harmful behavior. Social media can also have negative effects on any user's mental well-being. Through self-comparison and a possible addiction, a chronic disease patient risks deteriorating their mental health. Despite these negative implications associated with the use of social media to find health information, patients are still using these platforms to find the information they need for their chronic conditions. Future populations of patients with chronic conditions will grow up in a digital world, and social media will likely remain a strategy or routine platform for seeking support and information. It is critical for health and information professionals to fully understand these behaviors to ensure that social media can still be a useful tool for patients to access quality and relevant information on their diagnosis. Health professionals can deliver social media can use social media to deliver high-quality health education and campaigns targeting patients directly and provide quality sources of information where they will easily find it. By considering the ways that chronic disease patients use social media to find health and information professionals can meet patients where they are, searching with quality and useful information. For example, a healthcare provider can give health resources that suits the needs of patients who lurk and those who actively engage in online health communities. By joining rare disease communities or finding patients reaching out for support or advice, researchers can see firsthand the topics being talked about and the resources and advice being exchanged to help provide better healthcare support for these patients. By better understanding the information behavior of patients on social media, health information professionals can find a way to provide patients with quality health information where they are most likely to find it. Dressing's digital age principles associated with the radical change theory can be applied to the information-seeking behavior of chronic disease patients on social media. Patients dealing with chronic conditions require a substantial amount of information, support, and resources to successfully manage and treat their diagnoses. Social media provides patients with an accessible, easy, and private way to search for health information. Through the consideration of the interactivity, connectivity, and accessibility of this particular information-seeking behavior, health and information professionals can improve equitable support for the health needs of chronic disease patients. Thank you.
Thank you, Jillian, for your very informative presentation. It was very interesting. I'm always curious about social media behavior, so it was especially interesting to hear about chronic illness patients and how framing social media as a health tool. Your research makes me excited that hopefully other health professionals will kind of start thinking about it as a tool as well, because it's clearly being used regardless whether 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 or not they want it to happen or not, it's happening. Kind of like AI. So again, if you have any questions for Jillian, you can leave them in the chat. Looks like you're getting compliments. All right, I'll give everyone a couple of seconds to ask us a question before we move on to our final student presentation. All right, it looks like you're just getting compliments, so thank you, Jillian. All right, we have one more student presenter for the day. Is last but certainly not least, it's MLIS student Jaimie Lopez, who will delve into the eBook economy, shadow libraries, and intellectual freedom.
Okay, hello everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you so much. Hello, my name is Jaimie Lopez, and I am a master's student here at the School of Information. My presentation today is titled The eBook Economy, Shadow Libraries, and Intellectual Freedom. So to begin, I start with a story. Upon releasing the widely popular ChatGPT generative text chatbot for public use in 2022, OpenAI has been hesitant to release the specifics of the data used to train their large language models. In a 2020 publication released by OpenAI titled Language Models Are Few-Shot Learners, ChatGPT engineers and developers shared that around 15% of the materials used to train ChatGPT 3 came from internet-based books, datasets, Books 1 and Books 2. The mysteriously named dataset Books 2, while not attributed to any specific online source, has widely been theorized by data professionals, information activists, and authors alike to likely originate from the widely popular shadow library, zLibrary. How were they able to come to this conclusion? The Books 2 dataset contained over 294,000 book titles. No other internet-based book sites have ever contained so many titles other than a copyright-elusive shadow library. In a push to make AI training equitable for smaller AI researchers and developers, A group of AI researchers tried to mimic the training data set used for ChatGPT to make these materials widely available, downloading an entire 196,000 books from the Shadow Library Bibliothèque or Bibliotic, posting it for download in online plain text form. They published this data set under the name Books 3 in reference to Books 1 and Books 2. Recent lawsuits against generative AI model companies Meta with their Llama AI and Bloomberg with their Bloomberg GPT have revealed that Books 3 and other Shadow Library materials were used to train those models. The use of Shadow Library content in AI training and the subsequent backlash by authors and publishers is intricately tied to issues we are facing as information professionals who provide digital checkout services. We can learn from the popularization of shadow libraries around the world to improve our digital library services and bolster our long-term goals of intellectual freedom and service accessibility. So, to begin, what is a shadow library? A shadow library is an online-based file sharing platform that stores books, articles, academic and scholarly texts, textbooks, movies, music, TV shows, and audiobooks, all on a website. Site visitors are allowed to download or view any item online for free without requiring any identifiable information or geographic data. Shadow libraries are also known as piracy websites, as the majority of the materials are legally uploaded to the site in void of a publisher or owner's copyright of that material. Shadow library websites also allow authors to upload their own work if they choose to do so, but that doesn't make up a majority of the site content. You may have heard of some of the popular English-based ones that I have displayed here, like Library Genesis, also known as LibGen, Sci-Hub, ZLibrary, and Anna's Archive. Each site I just listed hosts over 80 million individual article titles and even more book titles. Some sites specialize in academic writings, others in popular fiction or video-based medias. It's important to note that these archive file sites run organically as users voluntarily choose to upload content. And when one URL is taken down, the website collection moves to a new site with much of the same function. Additionally, we must pay attention to the fact that these are colloquially known as libraries and incorporate library language into their titles, like ZLibrary, Library Genesis, and Anna's Archive. Popular among college students and academics, shadow libraries like LibGen and Sci-Hub have been introduced as alternative models to combat the high pricing of academic textbooks and journal articles. On these sites, patrons are allowed to access materials at all times without limitations, copyright restrictions, and without requiring membership or any other identifiable information. These fully digital models allow shadow library patrons to download text to their personal devices, allowing them to own the materials. This means that users can share media, print it, and distribute it in perpetuity, unbeholden to copyright, hold lists, or licensing restrictions. Users can also choose between file types such as PDF, EPUB, or MOBI when downloading materials, adding a level of customization to their experience. Additionally, the data downloaded by users cannot be edited by the original publisher once the file is downloaded to a personal device. From these examples of shadow libraries, we can see that these libraries are so popular because of their easy accessibility, the lack of restrictions for use, and their global reach. In the traditional library space, we have several examples of online libraries that are exclusively digital, many of which have sprung up as defenses for intellectual freedom in response to book censorship and book challenges across the United States. Intellectual freedom, defined by the American Library Association, is the right of every individual to both seek and receive information from all points of view without restriction. It provides free access to all expressions of ideas through which any and all sides of a question, cause, or movement may be explored. Since 2021, more than 5,000 books, primarily including themes of queerness or Black American history, have been challenged in public libraries and school media centers. Before 2020, book challenges were primarily brought on by individual patrons. Now, these challenges are primarily instigated by conservative political groups like Moms for Liberty that hope to censor books that do not align with their views. This increased scrutiny against media about diverse topics has led to fear amongst information professionals, for whom their ethical duty to protect intellectual freedom may come at the cost of their employment. In 2022, the Brooklyn Public Library in New York City began the Books Unbanned program to combat these challenges to intellectual freedom. Books Unbanned is a digital library initiative that gives youth ages 13 to 21 from across the country access to the Brooklyn Public Library's digital collection. This initiative targets youth that do not have access to challenge books due to censorship in their local libraries. Notably, Books Unbanned library card holders do not have access to the physical media of the Brooklyn Public Library. The Brooklyn Public Library has been joined by the Seattle Public Library, the Boston Public Library, the LA County Library, and the San Diego Public Library, expanding the age range and widening the catalog for these digital library card holders. Another digital library, the Queer Liberation Library, launched in 2023 as a fully online digital collection through Libby. Whereas Books Unbanned shares a digital catalog of existing and robust library systems, the Queer Liberation Library focuses on collecting queer stories only in ebook and audiobook form via Libby. The Queer Liberation Library positions itself as both a reaction to book bans and a long-term library option for preserving and championing queer history. And here's a quote from the Queer Liberation Library website. While banned books are certainly part of that equation, it's also true that if books aren't banned in an area, they simply may not be purchased or prioritized, whether due to a tight budget or due to homophobia. We can see that the Queer Liberation Library organizers consider the book banning process and the diminishing resources for queer stories as affronts to intellectual freedom for their patrons. The success and growth of these digital book libraries is both a good and a bad sign of the state of intellectual freedom. Their continued existence means that books continue to be taken out of the hands of readers, but more optimistically, these libraries also mean that information professionals are continuing to defend the public's right to read. While digital and ebook and audiobook libraries are a model for information resistance, the ebook distribution model for libraries may make the solution to intellectual freedom a short-term, unsustainable process. The issue lies in how libraries are pushed to acquire and distribute ebooks, audiobooks, e-magazines, and other digital media. Publishers can prevent libraries from purchasing perpetual rights to copyrighted material. Libraries that are forced to license ebooks with restrictive checkout limits or temporary licensing agreements that expire after 1 or 2 years. Libraries are forced to repurchase licenses frequently on top of additional service fees relating to using distribution platforms like Overdrive, Libby, and Hoopla. Libraries experience a financial drain when paying for so many copies of a single digital book, when they could use that same money to purchase a physical copy 10 times over and own that item until it becomes unfit for circulation. With an ebook licensing model, libraries risk long-term consequences for intellectual freedom in exchange for short-term benefits for library patrons. For example, using distribution platforms can allow publishers to change or remove books from distribution without warning to consumers. Additionally, as libraries use third-party platforms to distribute books, we risk our patrons' private data to tech companies that may not hold the same standards for patron privacy and data security. By transitioning to a digital-first acquisition models, libraries can lose the ability to share materials with other neighboring libraries, which is an important community building program between information centers. For some Michigan-based examples, you can think of MELCAT or Interlibrary Loan. Lastly, an overemphasis on purchasing digital collections in a library budget to remediate physical book bans removes a patron's ability to see themselves reflected in their physical library's materials, removing their representation within their community and robbing them of a safe space to learn without restrictions. So, while piracy libraries are illegal, we can learn from their distribution model as they explode in popularity with online users. Materials are readily available at any time and are often available in multiple file formats like PDF or EPUB. This gives patrons more flexibility depending on the access they have to technology and up-to-date software. Additionally, they do not have to remember passwords or pull out their library cards every time they find a new resource. And oftentimes, patrons who do use public or academic library services can turn to shadow library resources when they find out the item that they're looking for hasn't yet been purchased by their own library. An academic article search that would take a user from their own library search result page to an external vendor is almost instantaneous on a site like Sci-Hub, which automatically pulls up the PDF for an article if it finds a match for a DOI inputted by a user. That being said, piracy libraries are not without their risks to users and authors. Downloading materials from an unknown origin onto a public or personal device leaves users vulnerable to security attacks. Shadow libraries move domains often due to legal scrutiny and can be hard to keep track of for patrons and can diminish in quality between moves. Additionally, accessing copyrighted materials on a shadow library is unlawful and can hurt author profits. As information professionals, we have a duty to provide safe alternatives from shadow libraries for patrons, and this will require us to learn from these sites. We must understand new trends in information access to understand what library patrons, both present and future, need to succeed. So, if ebook licensing is unsustainable and ebook piracy is illegal, a long-term solution for the future of library services lies in the middle of both extremes. To end, I will bring us back to my earlier discussion on shadow libraries and their use in training large language models like OpenAI's GPT or Meta's Llama. In a submission of written evidence to the House of Lords Communications and Digital Select Committee in 2023, OpenAI representatives wrote this: because copyright today covers virtually every sort of human expression, including blog posts, photographs, forum posts, scraps of software code, and government documents, it would be impossible to train today's leading AI models without using copyrighted materials. Limiting training data to public domain books and drawings created more than a century ago would not provide AI systems that meet the needs of today's citizens. Likewise, for the library science and information science field, we cannot meet the needs of our current patrons without dissecting and learning from the structures of shadow libraries. If AI-based companies will continue to rely on data from shadow libraries to train their large language models, what lessons should we, as information professionals, learn from the materials used to train them? That was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaimie, for your presentation. I found it very interesting. I think of a lot of the topics we talked about today, I was kind of not as familiar with some of this, but I have heard about the issues in terms of where AI is getting its information and whether or not that is ethical. So thank you for bringing that into the conversation today, because that is still an important piece of this conversation that is still ongoing. I see you're getting some comments in the chat. If anyone has any questions for Jaimie, you can ask them now. I'll give you a minute or two.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Amber. I appreciate this opportunity to share with you guys.
Thank you. It looks like you're just getting compliments, which is a good thing. So with that, we will transition from student presentations onto an AI demo session with our own SysTech student assistant, Pearl Vang.
Hello. Sorry, my video is a little off. Yeah, so I'm gonna be doing the ChatGPT AI for everybody as a little demo. Right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right. So usually when you go into Google and you look for ChatGPT, this is one of it will immediately pop up, and when you click on it, this is basically like the home page of what it shows. And then from here, you can go straight into ChatGPT, which is right here to start a new chat. Or you can also look at the other AI programs that ChatGPT recommends. For example, there was one for writing, Write for Me, Humanize AI, a lot of other AI generating software and applications that can be used. But then for this one, we're just going to concentrate on just ChatGPT. So when I click here, this will be Ask Anything. So one of the things that's there that I think is funny for me when I was messing with this was, what is ChatGPT and how does it work? And then this is when it generates its own response, which is like how many of the speakers said, very personalized and using large language, it gives you how it does. And then it even follows up with like, would you like more details on any specific aspect? So you can actually have a conversation like search with ChatGPT. One thing that I realize is as you make a new chat, there's also this thing called temporary chat. When you click on it, this means that it won't appear in the history, use, or create memories, or be used to train our models. But as it also says for safety purpose, they keep a copy for 30 days. And then when you click on your account, there are exploring the GPTs, which I showed you in the beginning. And then what I liked was customizing ChatGPT. So with this, you can even make it more personalized to you. ChatGPT will know what to call you, what you do for work, what traits they will have, like what kind of tone personalization do you want with them to have, and all its capabilities as well. Another thing that I realized is when you go into the setting, this is where you can also be, if you were wondering about your privacy issues and such as that as well, this is where you'll be able to manage all of that as well, I believe. Which I think is pretty interesting that they give you this on just like a web app and just like a web-based application. I was not able to find a desktop application. I don't believe that they give that right now. They probably haven't gone that far yet, but this is where you can also personalize things as well. And you can also get it as an extension to Chrome. So if you don't want to constantly look on Google and be like ChatGPT and click on it, you can also get it as an extension to get it. There's also the upgrade plans. Right now, it usually comes free. So anything you get to go on there is free to use. If you want to do more, it shows the differences in the benefits for money that you would have to pay for, as well as a business as well. So yeah, that is the short demo of what ChatGPT can do. Does anybody have any questions? All right. All right. Thank you very much.
You again, like Pearl said, if you have any questions, let her know. We just wanted to make sure that we know that today we have a lot of people attending who have interacted in AI in a variety of ways and maybe haven't. So we wanted to make sure that we took some time to look at a specific platform to give you an idea of what it looks like and how it functions. All right, you're just getting thank yous, Pearl. And so with that, we're gonna start break a little bit early, I think, or are we on time? We're almost on time. It's the moment we've all been waiting for, and maybe not been waiting for. But either way, it's time to take a break. Take 10 minutes to grab a snack, stretch your legs, use the restroom if you need to. We will come back in 10 minutes. I might give you an extra minute, but please join us for the panel discussion to take place next. And then after that, we have our closing keynote with Dr. Hee-Rin Lee. So take 10 minutes and we'll be right back. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. It is 12:10. It's now time for the AI and Social Justice Ensuring Equity in Technology panel. Mike Hawthorne, Assistant Dean of Wayne State Libraries, will be moderating today's panel. He is joined by Greg McElhatton, Supervisory Copyright Specialist with the Library of Congress, as well as one of our own part-time faculty here at SIS. Also joining us is Head of JR Learning Labs, Juan Rubio, and Trevor Watkins, Teaching and Outreach Librarian at George Mason University. Take it away, Mike.
Oh, sorry. So thank you so much, Amber. So what we're going to do is we're going to have our panelists do a quick self-introduction, as Amber just did, but also give a brief overview of their most recent work or research that they're doing. So we're going to start off with Greg.
Hi, everyone. Like I said, I'm Greg McElhatton. I'm very fortunate to be both an adjunct with SIS, but also a graduate of SIS. And I'm at the Library of Congress, specifically within the library at the U.S. Copyright Office in the Office of Registration, Policy, and Practice. And I've actually been working a lot with AI the last couple of years, specifically the barriers for people who are trying to register things that were created with AI. And so I've been doing a lot of research and work on that.
All right. Up next, we have Juan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Juan Rubio, and like Amber said, I'm the head of JR Learning Labs. I work on the intersection of technology, learning, and design. I work primarily with cultural institutions in New York, and prior to JR Learning Labs, I was at the Seattle Public Library here in Seattle. I've been doing a lot of research and learning around AI and how they can be used in different contexts. The way that I used it at the library, for example, was to develop some resources around teen mental health with funds that were provided by the now sadly defunct IMLS.
And Trevor.
Hi, everybody. First, I want to start off by saying excellent presentations earlier today. I really enjoyed the students' presentations. My name is Trevor Watkins. I'm the Teaching and Outreach Librarian at George Mason University. I wear a lot of hats there. I do have a team, and we do a lot of teaching where we integrate AI in the classroom. I'll probably talk a little bit about that today. We also work on special projects. One student did a presentation on augmented and virtual reality. That is actually one thing, I kind of put that in the chat. We started using Matterport first, but we're also building, we're taking a 3D model that we get from Matterport to create our own actual augmented virtual reality version of that for the library. I'm also working on a conversational agent, which most people think as chatbots, but it's a little bit more sophisticated. I'm not using a large language model for it. I'm using a multi-agent expert system. And we're also going to talk about this a little bit later. We do a lot of AI across the campus, also within the community, and also with the public library and public schools that surrounds the GMU community. So thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation today.
All right. Thank you, Trevor, Greg, and Juan. So the way this is going to work, we have a series of questions, and most of them have already been pre-assigned to individuals, but there will be an opportunity for the other panelists to answer those questions as well. So we're going to start off with Juan. So the first question, AI systems often reflect the biases of their creators. What steps should libraries take to avoid reinforcing these biases when using AI in cataloging, recommendation systems, or other services?
Yes, big question and good question. You know, my call to action lately has been to like embrace the cyborg, right? But then coming from that point of view of like the cyborg manifesto from Donna Haraway, which is not just talking about like man and machine, but also like the spaces that lie in between, right? So moving away from these binary models that we tend to use, where it's either good or bad, black and white, but recognizing that sort of like potential that exists, for example, in the use of AI to assist us in be better, really human beings, right? But then also recognizing the pitfalls. And then creating some guardrails that can help us, right? Adopt the technology in ways that benefit everyone without, and then mitigating that harm. So in terms of libraries, I think that libraries are in like a very unique position because information is in their wheelhouse, right? That information systems and information literacy is something that they've been doing a lot for years. So for me, it's like understanding and taking an effort, making an effort to understanding the technology, you know, how AI works, how it relates to data, how it's creating these responses. So go and create some more than literacy for me is creating some sort of fluency in terms of how you are using the tool in some critical way, right? And practically, I think it's a matter of not taking the responses at face value, but really putting that human element in there and review the responses, you know, with your expertise and with your knowledge in terms of, is this accurate? Does this represent really the thought that I was, or what I was thinking about? Because when I see that people tend to think of AI as a substitute rather than an ally or a helper, and for me, it's more about using it to enhance your creative process or your thinking rather than to replace it. So for me, is that call of action of like embrace the cyborg, be critical about it, be also intentional about the use and exploration of the tools, right? And just learn. And then be that person that is in this position of privilege because you have been studying these information systems, and then help those who need the most to understand this complexity around AI. Try to be that translator also, right? That has a handle on the complexity of the technology, but that can actually explain it in clear ways to those who might not be so sure. I also have seen, you know, a lot of apprehension about the enormity of material that exists around AI, right? So that would be for me the way that I think libraries can approach it.
All right, thank you. Greg, Trevor, do you have a response or to the question?
Greg,
Greg?
No, I'm still taking it all in, actually.
Oh, all right.
In a good way.
Yeah, the only thing that I would add, I think Juan pretty much covered it all. And I'm kind of pointing this to a lot of the students that are here today. You may, when you graduate, depending upon if you're going to the public library, or if you go to an academic library, or if you decide to work in a special library, wherever that may be, you may be the person responsible for working with vendors. So if the vendors are, if the AI or the software that you're using is coming from vendors, you have to know what questions to ask. Not just that, but also like one student demoed ChatGPT, you have the vendor demo their software, their product, to make sure that those particular biases aren't there. And like Juan said, you test, you test, you test. That's the same thing. I worked in a public library. I ran an IT department at one point. And that's one of the things we did. We would, if we were evaluating some software, we asked to have the software for 2 weeks so we could extensively test it. And so that's the sort of mindset that we all have to have, like Juan just said, when you're learning these new tools. And if you're building them in-house, same thing, because there are some universities that are also building these tools in-house. So same rules apply as well.
Thank you. All right. This question is for Trevor. What initiatives can libraries take to ensure they are creating inclusive spaces for dialogue about the intersection of AI, social justice, and technology?
That's a great question. And we are already doing this at George Mason University. When ChatGPT launched in 2022, there was a lot of chaos on our campus. I'm pretty sure on a lot of campuses, like, what are we going to do? Students are going to cheat, blah, 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 blah. But one of the things that we did is, and this is credit to our computer science librarian, her name is Dr. Heidi Blackburn. We created an AI Salon series, and we have a couple of sessions each semester. And what happens in these Salon series is you don't have to have, you can come, whether or not you're an expert or if you're, just learning about artificial intelligence. It's the time where we kind of pick topics. And so each librarian or staff member can lead a discussion on it. So for example, we had a session on AI and copyright. So it goes to, what Greg does. And our copyright librarian led that discussion. And so we have a set of rules similar to at the beginning of this conference. We sort of laid the groundwork. This is a safe space. Here are the certain rules that we have to abide by when we're having these conversations. And we talk about copyright. We talk about what laws or what policies, And so that's a great time for people to sort of exchange ideas, and people that aren't necessarily fluent in AI, they get an opportunity to learn about it. I've led a session about AI and surveillance. I also co-presented with our computer science librarian about AI and elections. And this happened during the current election cycle. This happened in, I think, October. So obviously, we were a little afraid that it would, but it turned out to be, it was pretty civil. But we talked about a lot of those things. Not only that, we also, we initially held the Salon series just for the library. And then we open it up to the broader campus, and now it's open to everyone. So when we have these sessions, we have it in 2 modalities. It's in person, and it's also through Zoom. And some people from the community, mostly that's when they'll come and, they'll listen and they'll participate. We also created an AI community of practice. Besides just talking about things, we also get a chance to demo tools. Like I ran a session on AI and coding. And our social sciences librarian ran a session on video editing and deepfakes. So we do those type of things, not just within the library, but also we've reached out to the public library. We've also reached out and done some sessions and the schools in Northern Virginia that surrounds our campus.
All right. Juan, Greg, any response to the question from your side?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that along with everything what Trevor was saying is that, because so many libraries also double as instructional resources, it's like any kind of class. You've got to lay all the ground rules up at the very beginning and give your expectations because people, it's a lot harder to cross a line if you've told them what that line is first and what you are and you aren't expected to do or be allowed to do. And I think that's true of the use of AI and talking about it. If you treat it like some taboo subject where we're not going to talk about that, well, then don't be surprised when people do things that you didn't want them to do in the classes with AI, for example. It needs to be part of almost a week zero lecture, as I always like to say, and on the syllabus. Like you've got to make this very clear. And by having that, you can then start that dialogue with your students, with everyone to make sure that you're all on the same page and that you're all doing, what is acceptable and what isn't.
Thank you. Juan?
Yeah, what comes to mind for me is the idea of listening to your audience and really understanding what their needs are and not really assuming what their needs are, because we might have a very different idea of what AI could serve for our own purposes. But what do and especially like in public libraries, but it applies to all libraries. So like what are the users of the library really want to do with AI, or what are the things that are like really they have questions around? So for me, gathering that data, it's important to provide them with access in the true sense of the way of understanding the technology, but turning it around into being a useful tool for their particular needs.
All right, thank you. All right, so this next question is for Greg. What are the potential ethical challenges libraries will face as AI technologies continue to evolve, and how should they prepare for these challenges?
Yeah, I think honestly, there's two different areas of potential ethical challenges, and you can't really talk about one without talking about the other. The first is how a lot of these much newer AI technologies are getting their information to begin with. It's in the news a lot talking about, potential illegal scraping, the idea that under Title 17, Section 106(2), who can make a derivative work off of an existing product, and does it fall under fair use or not? And I think libraries in particular, as these new packages come out, need to keep in mind that AIs can be built ethically. They absolutely can, and we should never discount that and just say, oh, well, all AI is not going to be great, so let's just pick one and not worry about that part. The actual technology we're using right now, the Zoom, where people can remove their backgrounds and either fuzz it out or put an entire different picture behind them, that is an AI technology where it recognizes a person and it understands what to strip out. That was done not through scraping of information that didn't belong to them, but through careful, hard work and working with real resources that were, part of this. Even something like a voice recognition software, same thing. Those are built for years before the current AI technologies came along. And so as a library wants to purchase a product, it's good to know, was this scraped illegally, potentially illegally, or not? How was this put together? The other thing I would worry about is when libraries lean too much onto AI, and it comes back to what Juan was talking about earlier. You can ask, but verify. My students work on a assignment whenever I teach my current class where they have to find the best possible source for a series of questions. And I can always tell when someone has decided instead to go to ChatGPT because there are questions that it gets wrong, point blank wrong. And so that's just it. You can ask, but as an library and information science professional, you're the person who can verify. It's why libraries didn't pack it up for information whenever we got Google. you are the ultimate gatekeeper, and you need to make sure that you give your clients the best possible answers to their questions because they trust you. And as soon as you betray that trust, they're going to stop coming back.
All right. Trevor, Juan, any?
The only thing I would add to that is we now live, as you all know, in a world of misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. As you see now, all of the social media sites have based, all of the owners of those social media sites says that, well, anybody can say anything. We're not going to fact check anything. So I think it's really important, especially now, that we teach. I mean, we talk about AI literacy and digital literacy, part of digital literacy. And one thing I always try to impress upon, students is we can't leapfrog, your ability to search, find, and verify and validate information. You need to learn how to read laterally. So we do this in the classroom, but also show them, when they're actually prompting ChatGPT or Gemini, they should be able to see, in some cases, right off the bat, whether or not the information could be false. It obviously can be very convincing, but you have to, when you get that information, you have to, don't take it at face value. You want to, again, check to make sure that that information is correct. And I think that, because of the environment that we're in now, that's something that we really, really have to be very cognizant of when we're teaching our students.
Juan?
I really don't have much to add. I think that Greg really and Trevor covered it pretty well.
All right. Well, you're up next for the next round of questions. So
right.
For you, Juan, what are some of the interests and concerns you've heard your community members raise around about AI?
Yeah, I think most of it, I mean, different issues, right? I've heard the concern about what Greg was talking about copyright, right? And I think the libraries are in such a great position to really educate people about what does it mean to own rights for a work of art or something that you have created. Because without understanding that, you're not going to be able to process or the generation or the content that AI is creating for you and discern whether that ethical line has been crossed or not, right? Like fair use versus, and then what is copyrightable, right? Is an idea copyrightable? All of those things, right, that are really very important about understanding the creation of work. And I think that when you understand that you're going to be able to make better decisions and use the tool much better, right? Whether you can generate things in the style of, I don't know, Andy Warhol, and you can claim it as your own, right? Because it's going to be able to do that, right? Or whether the original idea is producing something that you can actually copyright. So for me, that is like really key. As in an effort that libraries can take on to educate the public, because it's not many people talk and understand really what a copyright law is and how it works, right? I was fortunate to have like a very good teacher on copyright that in college, so I kind of understand a little bit about it, but I think it's really key to do that. The other thing I think that I've observed is the overwhelming of information and new tools that are appearing in the landscape of AI, right? A new tool comes, a new addition, right? It's coming now, like MCP servers is the whole thing. And so now you have to learn more about those add-ons, right? So for me, I also think that that overwhelming feeling needs to be handled in ways that you must acknowledge the fact that you're not gonna know everything, right? And to be sort of be conscious of like how much you can learn and what is the path that you're going to take, right? Because you cannot be doing everything and learning everything, like I'm not I haven't even touched video because I've been working on AI and coding, right? And that's what my interest is. But the tendency is for you to know everything and wanted to know everything. So for me, is this idea of like, number one, I think for people to admit that it's okay to say, I don't know, because we always want to say come up with answers. So for me, that's like the number one thing that I tell people. It's okay if you don't know. It's okay if you are learning and in the process of learning. And then know that things are going to constantly evolve. And then what you have learned is already really valuable, right? So I've heard those concerns, right? The concerns mostly are around that, the idea of like, oh, what I'm going to tell ChatGPT of Claude is going to be stolen from me, right? That's a big concern. And that I think ties to this, like, okay, what was copyrightable? And then the other concern I've heard is like this idea of like, this is too much. I cannot like process this much information. And that's when I'm like, okay, you won't be able to, but just, take steps to build on that knowledge.
Great, Trevor. Great.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Gary. Oh.
Oh no, it was I went first last time, so I was just giving you a chance to jump in, but go for it, and then I'll go.
I think the one main concern that on the funnier end of things, are robot or is AI going to kill us? So we still have people. I mean, from they're talking about it from a Terminator, 3 sort of context. But certainly we can look at how the pop-up of all these data centers are affecting climate change, which is exacerbating that. But one of the other things that I hear a lot of times from students is loss of jobs. Will there be jobs there when I graduate? So that's one of the main concerns for them. And one of the things that I've been able to do is I've built great relationships with students once they leave. A lot of them still stay in contact with me. Some of them are working or work for the government or work in the DMV area, so they are using it. They're using it in IT to write firewall rules. If anybody is familiar with that, for the computer, how to lock down the servers. There's all kind of different use cases for it. And so one of the things that I try to tell them is you want to be able to get a gist of how the tool is used and how it will be used once you leave this campus. Because when you are going up for a position or a job, and I've looked at a lot of different job postings, they are now asking for that as a particular skill set. In some cases, it's requirements. In some cases, it's just a desire, but it's still there. So that is one of the things that I sort of lead with when I'm in the classroom, because that's typically all students typically ask, am I going to lose my job? Is the job going to be there? And I know that it's already replaced some segments of the population. I just talked to a friend of mine who was he worked, forget the name, forget what his position was, but he worked at the airport, air traffic controller, that's it. He works as air traffic controller, and he worked in Dallas, and he told me that they've replaced his entire unit that was there with AI. So this stuff is happening in certain places. In some places, they're not doing that. But it's a balance between those two. You're going to have situations where you're going to be using it. In some cases, going to be replacing it. And then there are some industries where AI is not going to be able to, it's not going to be able to replace it. But yeah, that's all I have for that.
Yeah. And one other thing I wanted to just briefly piggyback on that Juan had talked about was the fact that, like you said, you can't be up to date on everything. You can't know everything. It's okay that you don't. But as we continue to move forward and we hear about these interests and concerns in the community, maybe if there's questions that you keep getting over and over again, it's not a bad thing to maybe set up an alert or two. So for example, I have a couple of alerts that are set up right now about some of the bigger court cases that are starting to move through the system about AI. And I'm talking about like really big ones, like the New York Times suing some of the different generators, Getty Images suing some of them, which if you want a good laugh, do a search about Getty Images and their lawsuit over crowd photographs, where the AI generators, when asked to generate a picture of a crowd, not only gave them a crowd, but there was also a warped version of the Getty Images watermark included on them, because it was like, oh, all crowds have this weird thing hanging in the sky that says Getty Images. So whoops. But it's important to do things like that because, as Juan said, we can't know everything, but when it's something that we're being asked about over and over again, it's never a bad thing to give ourselves a little bit of an assist. We don't have to become an expert, but those things, just, even just knowing in the back of your head, people keep asking about this, touching in on it every now and then, find out what's happening. It's going to make you the resource that they depend on you being.
All right. The next question is for Trevor. Looking ahead, how can libraries help shape the future of AI to be more inclusive and socially responsible?
That's a great question. And I think it starts with the iSchool across the country. I look at iSchools as the education arm, obviously, of all the libraries. And so I think it starts there, whether it's through curriculum or curriculum design or classes or additional workshops, encouraging students like the students today who've presented to also network. That's also a good thing. But I think also, and it goes back to what I mentioned earlier, we have a lot of power. I think people don't really understand the power that libraries have and the influence and trust that we have from our communities. And people have been coming after libraries for years. The internet was supposed to replace librarians and staff, and it was supposed to go away then. And you had a lot of people in Congress who thought that way and still think that way. However, because libraries are trusted spaces, this is where this is where you're supposed to have, or you should have, these conversations. And I think having that symbiotic relationship between public libraries and academic libraries, a couple of academic libraries where I've worked at, we've always done that. We've reached out to the public libraries, the public librarians, to see, where are your skill sets? Is there anything that we can come and help assist with you, and also your patrons? Similar to what Juan said, the information gathering part, what do you guys want? So last year when we did a session at the Fairfax Public Library, one of the branch libraries, one of their librarians reached out to us because they heard of the work that we were doing at AI on campus. And so we asked them, we were like, well, what particular kind of session do you want? and they wanted the patrons were interested in using AI for job searches. So we went down, we prepared the presentation, we talked about using AI responsibly. If you're creating a resume, don't put your personal information in there, and show them how to actually create a sort of skeleton. And then afterwards, you go in and put your information, how to use it to assist you to write cover letters, also how to use it to search, because there are a lot of, like Indeed and some of the other platforms have now integrated AI and how to actually effectively use that. We're also doing that on campus as well. But those are spaces where it's inclusive. We've had in that particular workshop, we had seniors there, we had teens there. I mean, there's people from all over the different age, different demographics, and they were all interested in finding a job. And we ended up, from that conversation, at the end, started talking about some of the potential problems with it too. And so I talked about using AI to hack, because I used to be a ethical hacker before I became a librarian. So capturing your voice, if someone calls you, they can capture your voice. And I showed them how, some of the tools that, some bad actors can use to do that, and how they can defend themselves. So, these are sort of the spaces where they wouldn't necessarily get this type of information. And I think that's where we can do more of those kind of sessions or information sessions. And I think that's one way that we create a more inclusive and socially responsible people.
Trevor, you should have just led with being a reformed ethical hacker. That would be interesting to hear. So Greg, Juan, do you guys have a response to the question?
I think for me, sometimes I feel that we forget to really the programmers behind AI technology, and I think universities are like in the position of creating programmers that are ethically responsible. And DI school working with computer science, maybe, right? It's something that should come as part of their education, because they are, the ones that are creating the systems after all. And then that bias is going to go there unless we, number one, diversify the pool of programmers out there, and also creating programmers that have a better understanding of how these tools have an impact in society, and then creating then programmers that come with that more ethical social justice lens to work in these companies.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just piggybacking off of what both Trevor and Juan said, we're at honestly a really great fork in the road right now with how AI is being used, especially, but not just in libraries. And it's important now more than ever, I think, for people to speak up about it being socially responsible and speak up about it being inclusive. Like Juan said, we need to get those programmers in there that better reflect everything that's going on in the world right now and the people that are in the world. And similarly, if people say loudly now, we want more socially responsible AI tools, we want more inclusive tools, that's how we're going to get them. If we just say, well, hopefully if someone's going to make some, that's silence equals acceptance. And as long as we don't accept ones that aren't, that's how we get ones that are. And I think that's something that, especially students right now, you're in the perfect position to speak up, to make your voices clear, and have those expectations actually turn into reality.
All right, great. Actually, that's a great segue to your question. So is there a meaningful way in which current MLIS students can incorporate AI in their research and studies?
Yeah, and when I first saw this question, I was really intrigued by it, honestly, because I've had students who have incorporated it in a very ethical and positive ways, and I've had students who have not. And so I've watched it play out as a instructor, and so I think it's very important. One way that cannot be, overemphasized enough is that you can incorporate it is to use it for things like brainstorming and even create potential models. I think that's where AI is really doing a great job for students. Like it's okay to say, what are some ideas about this topic for when you're trying to begin your research? We talked about coding earlier. Could you write some code for me that will do X, Y, and Z? Or to take it more library, can you generate some AACR2 metadata about this particular topic? Things like that. But it's always important to remember that you can ask it to do these things, but that doesn't mean it's going to be perfect. You can ask it to code, for example, and it's going to spit out some code, but then you've got to actually see if it works or not. It might not work unaltered, Maybe depending on the size of it, it might not. The more you have it generate, the harder it's going to be for it to work perfectly with your system and for your needs. And and so you have to keep reminding yourself, this is a starting point. It's not the end point. And and that's been something, honestly, that has been going on long before AI. When I was an undergraduate student in the dark ages, and by that I mean in the early 1990s, I would find different resources and papers and stuff like that when I was writing my own paper. If I found one where I quoted from it, where I learned from it, that was great. That's what you're supposed to be doing. If I found a paper and I copied it wholesale and put my name on the top of it, that's not great. And that's the I think that's the biggest stumbling block that, right now students who are just really starting to see how easy it is to use these tools are going to run into. It's one thing to say, give me some ideas about this paper topic. It's something else to tell it to write the paper for them and to turn it in and say, here you go, Professor Greg. And Professor Greg goes, gosh, this is written really weird. And it goes downhill from there. So that's the thing, I think, more than anything else. Use it as an idea generator, use it as a way to find things, but never make that the final step. That should be the first step, not the last.
Thank you. Greg, Juan, Trevor? Juan.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a dilemma, right? Like, because it's very easy for you to completely rely on it. And I think you need to then be disciplined about the use of it, right? Because if you're going to generate code, for example, right, and it's suggesting debugging, you debug it, and it's suggesting you have to fix the code. If you only accept it, all those changes it's suggesting, it's really hard for you to understand when it doesn't work, right? What happened? Like Trevor, I think, was talking about replacing labor force, right? And a friend of mine, I told him how I was using Cursor to debug my code. And he's like, oh, Cursor is coming after my job, And I was like, well, but don't you need to actually know how to code in order to use it, right? And you really do, because if you just are taking it and doing it like that, you're gonna end up with something that it just doesn't work, or that it doesn't really reflect what you intended it to do. And I feel for me, it's always this human factor in what we produce that makes things really valuable and useful. And when we remove that, I think it's really it loses so much, and it might not be as useful as we might think. And I know I use the coding example, but I think it applies the same as like creating a paper or any other creation process you go through.
Yeah, and the only thing I have to add, like, and this is typically, when we're in the classroom, I always try to, well, first ask the professor if I could have, make sure I have enough time. But I go over traditional research methods first. So we talk about citation mining, forwards and backwards chaining, how to read laterally across articles, multiple perspectives, how to search for those, how to create search strings, but also the AI part, using AI to actually create the search strings for you. If you're having, like Greg talked about with brainstorming, if you're having an issue with your research question, you can use AI for that to kind of give you ideas on, adding additional research questions to whatever research you're doing. Also, one of the things that there's an application, and I'll put it in the chat, called Humata AI, and I don't know if how many people are aware of this, but it's a little bit different than ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and Perplexity, in that what it does is when you upload, let's say you upload a couple of articles, it basically does this analysis on that article itself. It doesn't, like, if you uploaded the same article to ChatGPT and asked it questions, it would kind of try to find other information. But here it searches solely within the article. So it's not creating something that's not there. It's basically using the word. So this is really good if you're doing a systematic review or a literature review or a scoping review. And this is something that I also talk to the students about, but also have showed faculty. And so they're using this tool now. It's a pretty effective tool. But yeah, I think more of that is, definitely how we do that.
All right, so that concludes sort of our formal assigned question portion. I do have some additional questions, but I also want to give an opportunity for our attendees to ask our panel any questions. So the question is, Q&A is open. Looks like you guys did such a bang up job. You've answered all of the questions. So like I said, I have some questions, and so we still have a few minutes. So if you can, if you don't mind, I've got some follow-up questions for you. So, and some of these you provided answers for some already, but they're a bit more specific. Are there examples where AI has been successfully integrated into library systems to enhance access to information for underserved populations?
Yeah, some of the public libraries, I'm originally from Ohio, but I know some of and I still go back every once in a while, some of the public libraries are now circulating laptops that actually have ChatGPT, Gemini, and I mean, I don't think it's banned yet, but DeepSeek, I know it's now banned in Virginia. We can't use DeepSeek on our university laptops, but of course I can put it on my personal. But that's one way. I know a lot of the kids, especially in the Youngstown and Cleveland area, which are, it's more of an urban area. The students don't really have access. And so they circulate these laptops with the tools and technologies on it. In addition to that, they also sort of provide a PDF to show you some of the basics of how to use that. So I think that that's one really cool way of ensuring, because we still have this digital divide, right? And so this is one way that I know public libraries are combating that, and it was great to see that they were actually doing that, and they also hold workshops too on how to actually use it. So I think that's one way that I can point to where this is the case.
Okay. Juan, Greg, anything to add?
I have seen the opposite happening, where libraries have come with like a stop to use of AI in their institutions, right? I was gonna do some work with DC Public Library, and I was proposing to include some AI, and they told me that the local government had not allowed them to use AI anymore. And the same thing happened at Seattle Public Library, where the city put a stop of the use in AI and all the all the government agencies under the city of Seattle, which the library is. So it's a little bit concerning for me, that stance, because it's something that it's not going to go away anytime. So it's better to embrace it than to actually be so afraid, because it's like the fear of the unknown is, I think, that default is like, let's just not use it. And for me, I think the best approach is like, well, let's see how we can use it responsibly.
And actually, this is a good question that somewhat piggybacks off of your response, Juan. What are some of the potential risks of AI systems in libraries that could inadvertently widen the digital divide, and how can libraries mitigate these risks?
I mean, one thing that Trevor talked about a little bit already is that the idea that, especially in underserved populations, the digital divide becomes much smarter when people don't have access to the digital, tools to begin with. And I love that libraries are, in some of these populations, lending actual laptops, as well as, setting up machines within the library itself. And I think the problem right now is that, as is very cyclical, as happens a lot, libraries' budgets are under attack right now. And when a library's budget, is being scrutinized and reduced, those are unfortunately the tools that are usually the first thing to go, because someone who doesn't understand what a library truly does will say, oh, well, let's just slash some money by stop buying these expensive computers, because you could buy a lot of paperbacks with that. And it's like, well, we do more than just yes, we have paperbacks. We hand out a lot of other things too. And so I think that's, again, somewhere where people really need to stand up for library funding and make sure that they understand that that's how we're going to reduce the digital divide rather than widen it, is by letting the money for those resources go away.
All right, it looks like we have a question from Camille in the chat. She says, this was such an interesting panel. Thank you. Do any of you have any predictions about the societal acceptance of AI within the next few years? So that's the first part of her question. So we'll stick with that first question within her multi-question. Do any of you have any predictions about the societal acceptance of AI within the next few years?
If I had that power, I'd be using it to buy lottery tickets. So, I mean, the reality is it's a brave new world right now. This is truly the digital frontier. And I mean, any prediction that I make is going to be instantly wrong. And I'm not kidding when I say instantly wrong. Like, I could make a prediction and 5 minutes later, we're going to get some kind of news and be like, well, Greg, you got that one wrong. And that's okay. And that's okay. I think the reality is that because it's so hard to make those predictions, because the landscape keeps changing so much, it's okay to be cautious. That doesn't mean you just stand dead in your tracks, but as you take those steps forward, you do it very carefully and you stop and you say, is this working? Did this work out well? One of the chapters I give my students to read every year about virtual reference was a chapter where it talks about using Second Life. And of course, the students are like, oh my God, Second Life, what is that? And I'm always just like, well, maybe that was one of the reasons why I assigned this to you, because maybe we don't go all in on one technology, because that technology in 5 years from now could be gone. And so I think it's really important to just, be cautious, understand that acceptance or not, no one really knows. And so that's where by being cautious, we're better situated for whatever happens next.
Great response. Any Juan, Trevor, any?
I think it is evolving so much, right? That you just have to continue being informed. I think predictions are really hard to make, right? And it's just a matter, like I was reading about how we're moving away from like really large language models to like smaller language models that are more specialized, right? That are more targeted to a specific context. So it's just changing so much. I think that the best approach is to be informed and then just read as much as you possibly can and explore, right, the tools that are there.
And I think that when you look at some of the AI winters that happened back in the late 1900s, particularly in the 70s and 80s, that's when, promises, they sort of overpromised on what AI could do, and then what it could actually, as far as performance-wise, it underperformed. And so, if you look at some of the last two AI winners, you had all this money that was thrown at AI. We'll be able to do this, we'll be able to do that. And then we went dormant. But even within that, we had the rise of expert systems, and then we had neural networks, and then we had deep learning, and then machine learning. And now we're here where we now have more improved, hardware is much more powerful, software as well as more sophisticated. It was the case back then where the software was great. We just didn't have the hardware power. Now it's sort of took that flip. We have a massive hardware power with not just the machine, but also the graphic cards. So I think I say all that to say that the markets, I think, will determine the viability or longevity of this and whether we will get to another AI winner. I think at one point, OpenAI was in trouble and Google bailed them out financially, came and threw some money at it. But I think if we keep going, if they keep the model where I think before it was free and then you had to pay $20. Now I think the student that did the demo, they now have a free, then $20 and then $200. Right. So I think greed will also, get us back to, or at least it could push those things back. But I think in general, I know a lot of the conferences that I've been attending, I'm at ACRL right now. Everybody's sick of AI. That's just everybody. I've read and I've attended some of the virtual sessions, and people in the comments are, is pretty brutal. But yeah, the cost is, when it gets to the point where most people are not going to be able to afford it, then it's not going to be a viable tool. So I think watching that, I think that'll kind of determine where things are going. So I try to keep an eye on that and also keep an eye on the laws too. So similar to what Greg and Juan pointed to earlier, and Greg specifically, when you talk about all of the lawsuits that are there, I can't think of the name of the person, but I think that she won this one lawsuit, and they used one of her images. I just can't think of her name in the actual application. But I think that's also going to be a part of determining where things are going to go with this. Of course, big tech has all the armies of lawyers and but we'll kind of see. But I think it all is going to boil down to all of those things.
All right, and so this may very well be at 1:10. This may very well be the last question. So the second part of Camille's posting in the chat. Do you think more companies, artists, local governments will begin pushing back more against AI? I think there's still a lot of fear of its negative effects, misinformation, deep fakes, copyright infringement, etc. So some people refuse to accept it at all, despite the excitement of AI by tech companies. So, the essential question is, do you think more companies, artists, local government will push back against AI? Or just, entities in general?
I think going off of what Juan just said about Seattle, the Seattle Public Library, or I think you said libraries or schools, and where they're saying, no, you can't, you're not allowed to use it. I think if more local municipalities, more libraries, more companies start to say no, and we're not going to use it anymore, or we don't find, or if at some point it ceases to have value, then I think that you'll have more people push back on it. So yeah, so I think that there's still a segment of the population that's going to refuse to accept it and is going to refuse to use it. Even if they have the access to it, they're just not going to do it. But as we mentioned before, that Juan mentioned earlier, it's here. While it is here, you should embrace it. Because it's still going to be a part of your job. So for those of you that are students that are getting ready to graduate real soon and you're going to be in the workforce, this is some of the things that you're going to have to do, not just in the classroom, but also within your jobs from within the library or whatever position that you take at another company.
Great, Juan?
Go ahead, Greg.
I was just going to say that one other thing about is that I think the pushback is going to get larger before it gets smaller, and I think one of the reasons why the pushback is going to get larger is because the bigger companies are starting to do so. Like I'd mentioned the New York Times and Getty, but they're hardly the only ones. And it was, when it was the little person, so to speak, versus OpenAI, it's very hard for there to get much momentum in the courts because you can just be outspent. And that's not the case once the bigger companies get in. And one thing that was relatively recently enacted in my office is a group registration, and specifically it's the group registration of news websites. And that means that news websites like NewYorkTimes.com, CNN.com can register an entire month's worth of content on one application. And I don't think that's any coincidence that this has become a very popular registration, because once you've registered your intellectual property, you can then sue for the misuse of your intellectual property. And so now that that is rolling, expect there to be a lot more pushback before there's less.
Juan?
Yeah, I just think from the artist perspective, right, or the creator, I think it really depends on a personal decision, right? Like, is this going to really enhance my creative process, or am I okay with using it? You know, I personally, I love the use of AI. I use it all the time. It makes me more productive. It helps me move forward. When I'm stuck, it debugs my code. So many applications that I use it for, but that might not work for everybody, right? Like that might not be the thing that a different person wants to do, or it's not going to fit in their process. But I think that the fact is that it's not going to go away, and a lot of people, even in these institutions to have banned it, are using it already without knowing, right? Like all applications now have some element of AI. So my advice is to just embrace it rather than ignore it, you know, because it's really here to stay. It's a powerful tool. It's a helpful tool. I really don't see it really going away. And the more you delay the understanding of it, the far behind you're going to be in the workforce, in your professional life, especially as a student.
All right, we are at time, so I'd like to thank Greg, Trevor, and Juan for participating in this and providing us with great responses to those questions. If you have additional questions for Greg, Trevor, or Juan, sure there's contact information that you can reach out to them directly. And again, this has been it's being recorded, so I'd like to turn this back over to Amber. And again, thank you.
Thank you all so much for a wonderful and critical discussion. You guys brought up so many important, valuable bits of knowledge about this topic. I'm sure our students especially are eating up this information. So again, thank you. And so now, finally, we've come to our closing keynote speaker, Dr. Hee-Rin Lee, Assistant Professor of Media and Information at Michigan State University. So right here in Michigan. All right, so Dr. Lee is a researcher in the field of human-robot interaction. Her work addresses problems beyond the efficiency and functionality that are often prioritized in the advancement of robotics. She designs and evaluates robots for social good with the aim of empowering socially marginalized groups, including people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds and older adults. This work will strengthen the autonomy of marginalized people in society to bring about positive social change. So without further ado, here is Dr. Lee.
All right, thanks so much, Amber, for the introduction. Can you, okay, I can share the screen. And then, wait. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
All right, great. Hello, everyone. I am Hee-Rin from Michigan State University, and thanks so much for the invitation to share my work with the Wayne State Information Science community. I'm so excited to present my recent work on workplace automation and automation literacy at this fascinating conference on Beyond Barriers. So the HR community, including myself, has long explored how robots can benefit society by supporting people with disabilities, children's education, and housework, and so on. And these two images you can see on the screen reflect the community's vision that our robots are and will continue to be a valuable part of society. And as a community member, as a community, like we kind of are aware of potential drawbacks, but we often focus on the optimistic future of robotics, and then believing that any disadvantages will be minimal. This might be due to the fact that not many robots studied in HRI are actually in the real world yet. then this is why I was kind of shocked when I observed how new robots called collaborative robots, which are kind of expected to work alongside of humans due to their AI features, are actually displacing workers and reinforcing existing power structures. So the voices of workers with the least power became even weaker with the adoption of robots in manufacturing factory, and the robots will enter into this power dynamics and actually reinforce these dynamics, so cause more issues to the workers. So the real world already has its own power dynamics, and robots or any other technologies can avoid being entangled with it. And the world outside the lab is shaped by this strong power dynamics. And the concept of power dynamics may be easier to understand with this visualization. So this shows how power dynamics work in Game of Thrones. It was pretty popular like 5 years ago. And there are social actors with strong power who can influence many others, as well as those who are mostly influenced due to their weaker power. So together, these social actors form a complex web. And here, we know that this visualization, okay, it's not, is it? Okay, it's moving. Here, we know that this visualization excludes one of the most important characters who gains significant power in the final season. So which means these relationships change dynamically. And this dynamic nature also indicates that the technologies we study will be part of this when it becomes part of the power dynamics. It has its potential either to reinforce or challenge these dynamics through our efforts as researchers. So in this presentation, I will present case studies conducted in manufacturing plants in the US to show how power dynamics play a role in workplace automation. And in the second section, I will share how I found automation literacy education to be a promising intervention for addressing these power issues, using the example of a library-based AI literacy program. And in both studies, as a researcher, my goal is to amplify the voices of people with least power, who are often perceived as having limited knowledge due to biased views towards them, and to integrate their unique contextual knowledge into the intervention design. So the first study, this line of research, although I conduct research as an HCI or HR researcher, literature on political economy and labor relations was essential to understand my observation in manufacturing plant. And as it was conducted in manufacturing plants, the people with least voices were production workers, and particularly older production workers who were considered as a potential target of automation. They were the one with least power. So to give you a bit of more background, so these are the new types of robots. It's called collaborative robots. So compared to the robots in early years that was caged, these robots have AI feature. That means it can detect human, dynamically react to the environment. And one of the renowned example is the Amazon Kiva. I don't know how many of you actually watch a video that it's moving, but basically it's like a Roomba, and it can kind of detect the people around. So currently the Roomba, Kiva in this case, but this Roomba-like robot has the shelves on top of it. So when you order something, these robots actually deliver things to the packers. So previously we had pickers who actually pick things from the shelves and then move it to the packers. But now we have these robots who are actually making this shelves themselves mobile. And then we also have this collaborative robot arm that again has collaborative feature. That means it can detect human. When human is around, this robot can stop. So it was generally considered as a more safe robot compared to that those caged robots. So HRI as a field kind of envision these features will make robots to be more collaborative. That means we can benefit human workers as well as like as they kind of work together side by side. However, that was not always the case. So I'd like to share the case study. So this is just a case study with one manufacturing factory. So in capitalist societies, fundamental power dynamics within workplace stem from what Marx refer as struggles. So between capitalists and workers. So capitalists seek to accumulate capital through the utilization of labor forces, while workers strive to sustain their livelihood through the earnings from their work. So these struggles have similarly been investigated within the HCI community, HR community, and sociology of work, which examine how these power dynamics between management and workers entangled with automation technologies. So this study explores these struggles in a large multinational company headquartered in the US, and it had non-unionized workforce. So in recent years, the company has an increasing number of outsourced parts, which caused the inventory inaccuracy issues. So the management found these issues to be the result of human errors, and they decided to automate the material handling process. The process was originally carried out by two types of material handlers. First, forklift drivers. So these are kind of forklift drivers who move pallets from the truck because the many parts are outsourced. So they move things from the truck and then to the shelves. And then there's a water spiders who actually move raw materials from the shelves to the line workers. A few months before conducting my fieldwork, this plan introduced two new autonomous mobile robots. So this is similar to what I kind of showed for the Kiva robot that looks similar to Roomba, but more in bigger scale, that aim to automate material handling work. And the large AMR is designed to perform the work of forklift drivers. So on top, the blue one with like boxes on top of it, that is the large AMR. And then the small AMR on the bottom, white one, is intended for the work of water spiders. Recognizing that the tacit knowledge of workers have been undervalued in robotics, I deliberately seek their knowledge to mitigate any biases I might have towards the workers. So therefore, instead of asking questions framed from my own perspective as an HR researcher or HCI researcher, I presented three keywords that were me, workplace, and my work. And then they wrote any related words related to those three keywords. So I just want to see how they interpret the keywords, my research keywords, and trying to see how they map things out so that I can see their interpretation of the keywords that I'm interested in. And after that, participants completed, after they completed their map, so on the left side, that's what they developed. So they wrote each word on one Post-it, and then they categorize them and they come up with their own map. And after they are done, I asked them to incorporate the term robot. So as you can see, the yellow Post-it, that's robot. And I asked them to put it within the map so that I can see how that robot fit into the existing idea of their workplace. And I also asked them to draw their ideal robots to understand what types of design features they value. So I recruited multiple stakeholders from like material handlers who are the kind of main stakeholders, and also sales engineers and others. Originally, I had a point of contact who was more like management side, and then he introduced me to some workers, and then I interviewed them, and I figured there are like other group of people who have different opinions. So I kind of recruit other stakeholders as well. So later I see there are some differences between the one who was introduced by the management and the one who I recruited through the observation had very different perspective. So one of the main findings is about this conflicting views among the participants. First, regarding the material handler and their work, the leadership and sales engineer believe the material handlers perform wasteful action by simply delivering material from A to B. And these material handlers' tasks can be easily automated. And on the other hand, older material handlers argue their work requires skills and intelligence. However, not all material handlers had the same opinion. So younger material handlers who actually perform the same task hold a different opinion from the older ones, emphasizing how older workers have limited technological knowledge of robots and then tend to avoid adapting them. The participants also had conflicting views toward the new robot that was adapted. So I showed the two robots. One was the little white one, and then the other one was the gray-black one. While young material handlers, sales engineers, and line workers consider robots as an opportunity to reduce labor costs and retain more jobs in the US, older material handlers refer to the robots as trash. So I didn't say it's trash, it was from the participants, claiming the robots are basically slower than themselves and pose a threat to their job security. When it comes to ideal robots, so I asked them to draw their ideal robots. So they kind of explained that material handlers once again held conflicting views, while young material handlers, along with the sales engineer, defined their ideal robot as fully autonomous, with quick payback by reducing the required number of workers for each task. Older material handlers wanted semi-autonomous robots to maintain control over their work operation. This would allow workers to maintain their autonomy and prevent de-skilling. So in this study, I encountered a few challenging questions. I actually took quite a time to answer these questions. And this paper took more time than my other papers to write. So first question that I wasn't able to answer was about why does the leadership prefer robots over forklift drivers who can deliver material much faster than robots. So generally, technologies are designed to enhance productivity, and the fast speed is an essential factor of productivity, particularly in robotics. Does the productivity of managing materials doesn't matter to the leadership? So I was able to find this answer to this question from Marx's theory of productivity and on productivity, labor. So according to Marx, whether labor is productive is determined not by work content, but rather by the role in accumulation of surplus value. So surplus value is a realized gain as it measures the profit that capitalists get after subtracting the cost spent for their products. So this cost involves numerous factors that are not directly related to production, such as marketing or financing. As a result, one individual worker's skills or performing a task limitedly contribute to surplus value. Rather, material handlers' work is just a nominal part and the entire cost, so they are just part of the entire labor cost as a whole. So this shows how workplace automation is entangled with a political economy context beyond the nature of work itself. Another question is, why do material handlers have conflicting views regarding their workplace automation? In previous HCI studies, and also some of the sociology of work and automation studies, workers were often perceived as homogeneous group, sharing similar opinions regarding the value of their labor and automation of their work. If the first question was addressed by the classic theory of political economy, the second question could potentially be answered by more recent research in the field. So recent studies have explained that divides among workers can result from restructuring of economic systems, such as vertical disintegration and liberalization. And these factors were implicitly and explicitly discussed by multiple participants in the study. For example, one young worker who was also a material handler appreciated robots because they could help prevent other production line being relocated to outside of the country, which was how his mother had lost her job at the very factory. And the management tried to relocate the work site to a different country with cheaper labor is a significant pressure on the workers, which lead them to more compliant to the management with willingness. So the weakening of worker solidarity is a critical issue, and it's not just found in my research, but it was also largely explored in labor relations research or political economy research. And this weakening worker solidarity is an important issue because the collective voices of workers provide a unique countervailing power to the market-driven power. And scholars pointed out that this weakening collective voice can cause serious issues of political and economic justice. So to address this weakened solidarity, this paper proposed, my line of work kind of proposed design researchers play a role in bridging workers' divided view first, before they actually do design activity, like participatory design. And I particularly draw upon the concept of inclusive collective imaginaries from political economist Duergest. And with this concept, design researchers would first recognize the existence of conflicting views among workers, and then facilitate development of collective imaginary regarding automation through their design process. So the role of design process is not just about generating design ideas, but also about thinking about what's the impact of this system and inform the workers about the existing literature in terms of automation, so that they can generate ideas that can address their concern. In conclusion, this study calls for the attention of design researcher to complex labor relations intertwined with political economic context that have shaped assembly lines in the past, continue to shape current workplace technologies, and then would shape future workplace. So, so that was kind of my first kind of a study that shows how power dynamics entangled with these automation technologies. And then now we are moving to the second section, which is about the AI literacy and recognizing the importance of power dynamics and role of researchers in addressing these issues. I have been collaborating with trade unions whose knowledge is often undervalued as stakeholders with limited power. In these partnerships, there is a consistent emphasis on the need for automation literacy, which they expect to help them engage in the negotiation process surrounding the adoption of automation technology or like workplace automation in general. And as a result, I have been developing an automation literacy education program or like training program for these workers. And given the significance of library science with the Wayne State Information School, and I will just focus on move to more like a youth and library-based automation literacy study. And this section, so I will just focus on a library-based AI literacy program designed for underserved youth. And in my commitment to addressing power issues and amplifying the voices of those with limited power, I aim to view underserved youth as not as empty vessels, but as individuals with their own experiential knowledge and assets. So we had multiple library partners. So the 3 library partners, so libraries in Michigan and California were in school district with high rate of low-income students. And in Maryland, the library was in a school district with a lower rate of low-income students. So Michigan 72%, California 80%, but for Maryland it was 30% in terms of the ratio of low-income students. However, the librarians in Maryland, they connect us to Boys and Girls Club serving socioeconomically underserved students. So that's how we collaborate with these libraries. And all participants in this study were either racial minorities, females, or members of low-income communities. And we also had industry partners as the background or the motivation behind this study was about how we can support the youth patrons to be more prepared for the future workplace with lots of AIs and automation technologies. So the industry partners, we had UC San Diego Health, the hospital, and we also had UAW in Michigan. And then we adopt the design, we adopt the asset-based approach, which views the student as individuals with unique assets and that are not necessarily monetary, but may include qualities such as resilience, rooted in their community's historic civic actions. And this approach is grounded in Yuso's concept of community cultural wealth, which highlight the unique cultural strength of underserved communities, aiming to avoid, and then this aim to avoid the deficit-focused pedagogy. And methodologically, we adopt collaborative research approach and enable youth participants as co-designers of literacy material development process. So the program consists of 2 modules with each with 2 sessions. Module 1 aims to inform patrons about AI concepts, focusing on AI features, particularly on classification and generation. Since we aim to help youth apply the AI knowledge they gain from the program to their daily lives and develop critical thinking skill, Module 2 encourage students to envision how AI can be used in their communities to address local issues and their future workplaces. So we have like many findings out of this project. It just ended like last year. But I'd like to focus on one of the most interesting findings, which was about the assets of youth patterns or that were naturally mobilized and emerged throughout the research process. So we originally worried about whether students would be able to understand how AI works and their relationship to database, data sets, training data sets, so those like kind of core concepts of AI. However, they went beyond merely understanding the concepts. They actively identified potential bias issues affecting their communities. And additionally, they use the concept to address local issues, apply them to their future workplaces. And overall, it was not just us who deliver new knowledge to them, but they themselves engender new activities, discussions, and ideas based on our material, which we adapt in the end as part of the regular program. So the first capital, the community cultural wealth. So I will go through like 3 different types of capital, so which is their community cultural wealth. So the first is about the resistant capital. So this capital refers the knowledge and skills of underserved students that enable them to identify and challenge inequality in society, such as racism. So education researchers have found that this capital originates from their community's historical experiences of oppression and their continued efforts to address it. So similarly, in this study, we found that students with minority identities used resistant community wealth to identify racial and gender biases involved in AI systems. And they discuss the biases as a systemic issue in the AI and even extend their concern to social justice issues in broader STEM fields. So the resistant capital was mobilized while teaching the concept of generation in day 2. And after learning the concept, they were asked, so the patrons were asked to create their own future self-portrait by using DALL-E, which is image generative AI system. And unexpectedly, students started discover how DALL-E has biased views towards their identities. So for example, here, these 4 images are generated by one of the participants. Her name was Chloe. She's like fifth grader, not 50 year PhD. So she had this prompts saying that she wanted to be an astrophysicist. So that's why she had this prompt of astrophysicist playing Splatoon 3, eating fluffy EV pancakes with a lot of cats. So she wanted to be an astrophysicist, and she liked Splatoon 3, which is a game, and eating this EV pancake. So like she was just trying to be futuristic, I think. After she entered this prompt, she had these 4 images. So usually when you enter one prompt, there are like 4 images. And she figured all these images are male, although she's not. So she started to kind of discuss with her like her friends, I mean the other patrons about this issue, like why is this happening? And naturally, these youth participants discussed how this could relate it to the biased original data sets that when they create the system, and which then expand to a broader like conversation about gender bias in STEM fields as well. So it was not just about the gender bias, but students also found racial bias toward in the generative in this system. So after she failed, she kind of thought, oh, okay, why am I presented as a male? And then she added this prompt. So you can see the right underneath each image. I added the prompt that she used. So she said, like, astrophysicist playing Splatoon 3, eating fluffy EV pancakes with a lot of cats, and then she added female. And then she finally had this female character, and then she figured all the images are actually not reflecting her Asian American identity. So she now added this Asian female, and then saying like Asian female astrophysicist playing video game with tons of dogs in space. And after that, she figured all these images has distorted eyes, and she didn't like it. So she was thinking maybe is it because I added this new description of video games and tons of dogs in space, maybe that doesn't align with Asian female astrophysicist. So she tried again by removing Asian female, and then she now go back to this male version of herself. So later she ended up choosing this like female, the left side, the white identity, because it is most similar to hers. And then she discussed this with others. And as they talk to each other about like why things are not, I mean, why this like image is generated doesn't reflect their identity well, they figure this happens not just one person, one pattern, like, but others as well. So it has bias towards the race, as well as ethnicity. So as you can see from this figure, from the left side, the skin color. So this student mentioned he has light skin, but he said like the color of his skin doesn't really match with what he really is. And then the other student, the participant, she used the Sudanese, and then it didn't work well. So we kind of discussed why this is happening, and we go back to the discussion about how this thing work, especially how this Gen AI generate image by using GAN network type of thing. So there were another capital that we found that was about communal capital. This is like generally is considered as something similar to a familiar capital, which refer to cultural knowledge nurtured by students, strong sense of kinship within their community. In our study, the original definition is from the Yoso's community cultural wealth, but for our study, students had a broader definition of what community indicate. Including like their local communities, things like that. So this form of community, this cultural capital is closely tied to a commitment to the well-being of the community, expanding beyond individual interest. So in our study, participants use their communal capital to envision how AI system, not just design AI system, not just for themselves, but for their communities. And this can be explained by Ava's example. So what I asked them to do was I asked them, like, when you think about all these concepts and examples that we went through in day 1 and 2, which was module focusing on the core concept of AI, for day 4, which was about their future workplace. So I asked them to draw their ideal AI system for their future workplace. And I actually envisioned they would explain something like, oh, I will use this system to do this and that, more task focused. But this student, as this student shows, she's actually a refugee. And then she wanted to give back like what she had received to the refugee community. And she wanted to be a social worker there. So she saw AI as a valuable tool to support the center's limited resources. And then it's not clear here, like, because it was explained when she kind of described how she wants to use this system. So when she explained it, she mentioned that AI should be able to recognize all community members' names and help them socialize, and emphasizing the importance of valuing like each individual refugee's identity, and at the same time engender community, like sense of community among them. So the third one is about creative capital. We also identified this capital, which refers to knowledge related to creativity that allows students to interpret AI in unconventional ways and develop new activities that researchers might not have considered. So surpassing our expectations, the teens were able to create new activities for AI literacy program based on their interpretation of the basic AI concept we taught. For example, when we taught classification on day 1, students worked on developing their own classifier by using Google Teachable Machine to determine whether an image was a cat or a dog. So what they did is they basically create a data set of cat and create data set of dog, and then they come up with this classifier. So if you upload a new picture, that classifier determine whether it's like how many percentage of that image is dog or cat. And then after they kind of play with it, they began examining the data set for each category and understand how the classifier identifies certain characteristics, such as using, like, for dog data set, the dogs has like a bigger nose compared to the cat. So they use this webcam. So I didn't expect them to use webcam, but we happen to have this computer that has a webcam, and they kind of examine how their face is identified, like how many % of their face is identified as a dog or cat. And then like they start to see, okay, the nose are important, for example, and then they use this like a water bottle to enlarge their nose so that they can be considered more as a dog. But this kind of naturally helped them, like they play with it, but it's this kind of naturally helped them how classifiers are determined not based on how humans conceptualize dog and cat, but in a sense that depending on the common characteristics they upload to the to develop classifier, determine that. So it was an interesting way to see the concept that we taught, how they creatively kind of think of how can like creatively think of the potential activity. So we actually include this as a regular activity. So So that is about the second section. And then, so throughout this presentation, I kind of trying to show like how these emerging technologies are inevitably like entangled with power dynamics and role we can play in changing existing bias or like invisible knowledge of certain communities, particularly those from like underserved communities and people with limited power. As a HR researcher, HCI researcher, I mean, I have multiple hats of like STS scholar, like HCI, HRI, sometimes like library science, but it's just so exciting to see these new technology become an integral part of our lives. However, I also have concern that how this would benefit certain groups more than others, and potentially widening the resource gap or like wage gap, economic gap in our society. So this is like a report from The Economist showing the decoupling effect of wages from productivity. This basically shows as we have more automation technologies, we see the productivity increase, but then the ratio of like increasing productivity doesn't come with the increase of wage of workers. So somehow the benefit of this increasing productivity doesn't influence certain groups, and it also like show increasing like wage gap, potentially like a social justice issue related to the economy. And this is particularly severe in the US than other countries. And hopefully, I think this data kind of makes me, I mean, data, something like this kind of makes me more concerned about the increasing inequality and discrimination. However, at the same time, like trying to like be more hopeful that researchers will become more aware of these power dynamics and importance of power issues involved with these emerging technologies and take more active role in shaping our future to address potential social justice issue. So thank you for listening my talk, and these are my collaborators, and I'm happy to happy to answer any question you might have.
Thank you, Dr. Lee, so much for your closing keynote. What I found particularly interesting, I'll say really quickly, I really liked how you showed how children were interacting with the AI, and how they put in different prompts themselves to figure it out on their own. So it was especially, I really enjoyed that piece, although the whole thing was very informative. I'm going to check the chat to see if we've got any questions. Oh, just compliments. But yes, if you have any questions for Dr. Lee, now is the time. I'll give a brief pause.
I'm glad to hear that you actually enjoy the part where students be more like active kind of participant rather than just followers. I also was very surprised that they can be, because the most of the concern definitely were about like what can they actually understand, what is a good level of information to teach AI. But yeah, it was just so fun them creating things by themselves and then like create like discussions among them. So yeah.
Agreed. All right, I don't see any questions popping up. So that means that we are concluding our second Beyond Barriers conference. Thank you, Dr. Lee, and thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you've learned more about AI, libraries, and social justice, and how being informed and inclusive is critical in this work. Please keep a lookout for future DEIA-centered programming from the School of Information Sciences. And if you have any questions or suggestions for future programming, please send that email to me at aharrison@wayne.edu. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.